Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. How do you remember all this? Do you write down my every mistake in your diary and review them before bed? Who would do something so creepy? Lockie snapped. That kind of obsession only comes from 2 types of people. People holding grudges or people in love. She crossed her arms. And for the record, I don't keep a diary. Chapter 316, Lucy's unlucky day. 2 days passed in a blur of busyness. The good news? Master Mikhailov really didn't have to write even a single self-criticism report. The bad news? Rhodes lost the bet. Happy and Warm were now feasting together at a small, low table Lucy had specially prepared for them, piled with fish and pomade treats. Joining them today was a new companion, a petite, snow-white spirit with a round head and a nose shaped like an ice cream cone. He looked like a chubby little snowman. This was Plu, the ornamental celestial spirit. Like Warm, Plu consumed very little magic, so even Lucy could maintain his presence without strain. Naturally, she kept him around as an adorable magical pet. At the counter, Lucy was venting her frustrations to Myra. Ugh, what a waste. It was such a rare chance to make enough money to pay my rent all at once. Myra calmly polished a wine glass with a cloth. So, how'd the mission go overall? Lucy flopped onto the counter, her face smushed flat beside her stuffed bear. She groaned. I can't say it went badly, we did complete the mission. But while we were chasing down the thief, Natsu accidentally broke a necklace. And we got docked 100,000 jewels. Oh no. Myra gave her a sympathetic smile. Lucy sat up and raked her fingers through her hair in frustration. A whole 100,000. That means our beast hunting mission basically earned us nothing. Well, at least the hunting job went smoothly, right? Sort of. Lucy said with a tired sigh. We did manage to defeat the leopard. But Natsu, he always goes overboard in battles. If we hadn't followed Mr. Rhodes's advice and set up precautions for fire damage, I swear the whole mountain would have burned to ashes. Sounds like Natsu all right. Myra nodded. So Aqua helped put the fire out? Yeah. We made sure to find a spot with water before fighting, but in the heat of battle, I had to summon Aquarius in the mud. Lucy's voice dropped to a pitiful whine as she slumped over the counter again, one hand rubbing her backside. She wasn't happy. At all. My butt still hurts. Want an ice pack? Gray offered helpfully, his palm emitting a chill. Pervert. You're doing subtle harassment under the guise of kindness. I want to see Lucy's red butt. Happy chimed in gleefully. That's not even subtle, that's just blatant. Hulu. Blue. Warm. Blue. Don't learn bad habits from that rotten cat. Though her mouth was full of complaints, Lucy's eyes sparkled, and her voice held a cheery lilt. She was clearly in a good mood. Despite the broken necklace and the deduction, their combined payout was still 250,000 jewels. After the penalty, they received 150,000, split evenly. That gave Lucy a solid 50,000 J. Sure, it wasn't enough to cover her full rent, but she could easily earn the rest with a simpler mission. Rhodes, meanwhile, thought about the bet he'd lost. He could already imagine the teasing that awaited him. Still, he couldn't help but be pleased for Lucy. Earning over half the total reward on a dual mission with Natsu was no small feat. She had a bright future ahead of her. As he mused, Rhodes glanced over at Mikhailov dozing lightly beside him. If I were guild master, he thought, this would be the time to ask. Do you like this kind of work? He said it out loud, casually. Mikhailov opened one eye, then the other. He gazed at Rhodes for a moment and smiled gently. The more he watched this kid, the more he liked him. Lucy's answer came at once, full of certainty, even if there were some unexpected bumps. I love it. Because it's just so much fun. Lucy said excitedly. Miss Myra, did you know? The jewel thief wasn't a wizard at all, it was a group of crows. Crows? Myra tilted her head. Yeah. They were stealing shiny jewelry and storing it in the nest of their leader as decoration. Isn't that wild? Lucy grinned mischievously. To get the jewels back, we had to climb the tree, and the crow leader ended up becking Happy's tail. It was hilarious. We went there to do a mission, Lucy. That's just cruel. Happy huffed, a small piece of fish tail hanging from his mouth. Hearing her teasing, he gasped in horror, dropped the last of his fish, and waddled off while sniffling dramatically. Huh? Lucy blinked in confusion. It was just a harmless joke. He was literally making butt jokes a minute ago. Myra gave her a mock sad look and sighed. To think. Lucy would laugh at a teammate and belittle his hard-earned contributions. Poor Happy must be devastated. Did I really go too far? Lucy clutched her head in both hands, panicking. She turned to Rhodes for help. What should I do? It's really not that serious. Rhodes replied casually, clearly unconcerned. Happy can be coaxed with 1 or 2 grilled fish. And even if you don't, he'll be fine. He glanced between Myra's mock sympathy and Happy's dramatic exit. Lucy, who'd already endured enough suffering from her celestial spirits lately, decided not to question further and nodded. I'll buy a fish for him anyway, just in case. Before she could follow through with her peace offering, Rhodes ruined the prank by calling it out. Myra pouted at him, her eyes narrowing. He still hadn't fulfilled the punishment from their earlier bet. Just then, a bit of noise broke out in the guild hall. Several people dressed in the white uniforms of the Magic Council stepped through the doors, drawing the attention of everyone inside. Excuse us. The lead investigator said. We're here to continue our investigation into the Eisenwald terrorist incident. We hope those involved can assist by answering a few questions. Master Makarov, if we may. They scanned the room and approached the guild master with respectful but serious expressions. Makarov gave a light nod. Go on, who do you need to speak with? The council member read from the list. First, Mirza Scarlet. Then Natsu Dranil, Grey Fullbuster, and Lucy Hartfilia. Huh? Lucy suddenly blurted out, startling everyone. Under the weight of everyone's surprised gazes, she forced a laugh, her expression stiff. Sorry. I just got a little startled. Did you say interrogation? Ha ha ha. Ha. She was trying too hard to sound casual. Her nervous energy made her stammer, and even Rhodes narrowed his eyes. Something definitely seemed off. The council officials didn't seem fazed. One of them clarified politely. No need to worry. It's not an interrogation, just a standard inquiry. You won't need to come to the council. We can handle everything right here. Ursa, Natsu. Makarov called out, waving them over. Gray was already nearby. He'd just been looking for a new job from the request board. Natsu shouted back in annoyance. What now, old man? Ursa and I were about to have a duel. Makarov suddenly perked up with enthusiasm. What? A duel? Excellent. I'll be the referee. Where's Ken? Let's get the betting pool started. The council representatives looked at one another in confusion. Was this really one of the 10 wizard saints? Myra gently reminded him. Master, maybe. Try to act a little more serious. Ahem. Makarov cleared his throat and forced a more dignified expression. Right. The duel can wait. Let's assist with the investigation first, answer everything truthfully. The council? Natsu suddenly looked guilty. I didn't set the forest on fire. Rhodes smacked him lightly on the head. You idiot, they're asking about the Eisenwald. The council members exchanged wary glances. This pink-haired fire dragon slayer was quickly climbing their suspicion list. Come on, over here. Rhodes sighed, leading the group to a round table off to the side. He dragged over some stools and motioned for everyone to sit down. Natsu, please don't blurt things out unless you know what they're talking about. Chapter 317, Buy and Leave. To Rhodes' relief, what he feared most didn't happen. The inquiry turned out to be just a standard follow-up. Mirza and the others were asked to share additional details about their battle with Eisenwald and the surrounding events. Much of it would likely be used to cross-check the confessions of the captured Eisenwald members. There was particular interest in Erger. The investigators wanted to assess his strength accurately and try to predict where he might have fled. But by the end of the session, they looked somewhat disappointed. They probably missed the kind of in-depth, illustrated, tactical report that Captain Leher had submitted last time on Rustros and Zankro. Clean, detailed, and easy to use. Too bad Rhodes had never actually fought Erger himself. As for any accidental destruction or fallout from the mission, none of it had been serious enough to require disciplinary action. After all, it was still within the expected collateral range for a high-difficulty mission. Since no complaints had been filed, the council had no grounds to press further. Fortunately, the investigators were polite and respectful, and Mirza and the rest of the team cooperated fully. The atmosphere was surprisingly pleasant. Before leaving, one of the council officers even pulled out 2 back issues of Sorcerer Weekly and asked for autographs, one from Mirza and the other from Myra. Rhodes couldn't help but stare at the magazine featuring Myra on the cover. It was an older issue he never managed to buy. He quietly made a note to stop by Myra's house soon and search her bookshelf for it. The officer left with a goofy smile after getting his autographs, but not before staring at Rhodes for a long moment and sighing wistfully. Myra tugged at Rhodes' sleeve and teased. "Ooh, potential romantic rival spotted if someone like that is considered a rival." Rhodes replied with mock seriousness. "Then I've got rivals in every corner of Fiore. My girlfriend's just too popular, I'm so distressed." Hearing this, Wakaba nearly choked on his cigar. "You're distressed? I want to have that kind of distress too." Nearby, Lucy had been watching everything with a slight twinge of envy. She slowly edged closer to Myra and whispered, "Miss Myra, is being a model hard?" Myra gave her a warm smile. "Not at all. Lucy, you're beautiful and have a great figure, you'd be really popular as a model. Want to try it?" "Ah, you're exaggerating." Lucy covered her cheeks, blushing furiously. "Besides, I'm not ready to be famous overnight." She started imagining the consequences: people crowding around for autographs, constant photo requests, endless interviews, swarms of reporters, and creepy fans stalking her across town. Lucy's shy expression grew dreamier by the second. "I'd lose my quiet life completely. I need to think this over carefully." "Take your time." Myra giggled. Watching Lucy spiral into dramatic daydreams was too amusing. Across the room, Jet and Roy jumped in with their usual enthusiasm to cheer Levy up. "Levy's the cutest girl in the guild." Levy gave a resigned sigh. She believed them. Really, she did. But if she had a choice, she'd rather be called sexy than cute for once. Once the council officers finally left the guild hall, Natsu instantly snapped back to full energy. "All right. Now that the boring suits are gone, it's showdown time, Ursa." "Very well." Ursa rose to her feet, walking toward the backyard without hesitation. Rhodes' excellent tradition of fighting responsibly was still alive and well, but Master Mickrel really wished the two of them would have picked the street out front instead. It was more open. And more importantly, there were no walls to destroy. "Wait, why is Natsu suddenly challenging Ursa?" someone in the crowd asked. Was he influenced by Rhodes? "Does Natsu need a reason to start a fight?" Someone else replied. "Come to think of it, hasn't Rhodes stopped picking fights lately?" Elfman, always observant in his own weird way, had already figured it out. Rhodes wasn't fighting random guildmates anymore, because he already had an S-class sparring partner. Thanks to that, Myra had been steadily regaining her combat strength, but it came with a price. Under the excuse of retraining, Myra had taken to regularly beating the crap out of Rhodes. But from Elfman's perspective, that wasn't all bad. With Myra's attention focused on Rhodes, she had less energy to direct toward him. He still didn't know whether to thank Rhodes or blame him for that. Someone nearby whispered, "I heard that when Mirza asked Natsu and Gray to form a team, they promised to fight her once they got back." "Wait, does that mean Gray's fighting Mirza too?" Gray crossed his arms and grunted. "I'm not an idiot." "Fair point." Natsu had already gotten pounded by Myra 2 months ago. Challenging Mirza right after that? Not a great idea. Still, both Natsu and Mirza now stood facing each other in the open courtyard behind the guild. A ring of spectators quickly formed. The smarter ones climbed up on the wall for a better view. Lucy managed to squeeze through the crowd. When she caught a glimpse of Mirza and Natsu's intense stares, she gasped. "Wait, are they actually serious?" "Of course!" Elfman shouted, pumping his fist. "You can't call it a real fight if it's not serious. That's what makes it manly." "Manly, huh?" Myra muttered, side-eyeing her brother. But when the word was being used to describe Ursa, she could forgive it. Actually, it made her kind of proud. "The betting table is open." Kana shouted gleefully. She hung a large sign that read "Place your bets," and set out a basket to collect the money. A crowd surged forward, shouting out wagers. Surprisingly, a lot of them were betting on Natsu. Happy, however, was still undecided. He tapped a finger to his chin thoughtfully and turned to the crowd. "Who do you think Rhodes would bet on?" Lucy raised an eyebrow. "Happy, you're definitely gonna bet on Natsu, right?" Rhodes tilted his head thoughtfully. "Honestly, Mirza's more likely to win. Unless Natsu's willing to fight like it's life or death." Happy didn't hesitate. He pulled out his pouch of coins. "I'm betting on Mirza." "What a ruthless little cat." Natsu cried in disbelief. Myra chuckled. "How about you, Rhodes? Gonna place a bet?" "Nah. Doesn't feel right picking sides, and you know me. I don't smoke, don't drink, don't gamble, no bad habits." Rhodes always claimed to be a model citizen, completely incompatible with things like gambling or vices. Myra gave him a sly smile. "Really? You don't drink too much? Who was the one passed out drunk after every guild party?" Rhodes coughed. "That's just because the mood's right. Honestly, he wasn't a big fan of alcohol itself, but when everyone was laughing, singing, and celebrating together, he couldn't help getting swept up in the energy. It's not like anything bad happens from getting drunk in the guild, right? Myra's eyes glinted with mischief. Next time he passed out, she was going to draw lipstick kiss marks all over his face. Then sneak a lipstick into Elfman's hand and leave him lying next to Rhodes. Let's see if he'd still say nothing bad happens. All right, both sides, get ready. Makarov shouted, stepping forward to act as the official referee, despite knowing full well this was going to be chaotic. But it was hard to say no when everyone looked so excited. Mirza smiled as she stepped into position across from Natsu. It's been a while since I fought you seriously using magic. She added with a smirk. Come to think of it, I still owe a duel with Rhodes too. No matter who it is, you, Rhodes, Myra, Lixes, I'll take you all down. Natsu declared, fire in his eyes and steam puffing from his nose. Mirza chuckled. You've got guts, I'll give you that. Then, with a gleam of magic light, her armor changed. Requip, Flame Empress armor. A brilliant flash lit the field as she swapped into a set of crimson and gold armor, sleek and radiant, designed to resist fire-based attacks. Her hair shifted into twin tails, whipping dramatically in the breeze. Come at me with everything you've got, Natsu. Chapter 318, The Duel Before the Drows. The Flame Empress armor, huh? Natsu grinned with excitement, licking the corner of his mouth. That's more like it. Now I don't have to hold back. Mirza smirked, her eyes gleaming with challenge. Good. I'll be fighting seriously too. Makarov raised one hand high, then slashed it downward. Begin. A roar of fire erupted as Natsu burst forward, flame surging from his fist. With a single step, he closed the distance, swinging his arm in a downward arc, flames trailing behind like a blazing crescent. The sheer heat made the onlookers flinch as the temperature spiked. Mirza stepped back, quick and precise, then slashed out with her long sword. Her eyes narrowed, all smiles gone, her blade held the intent to cut, and it showed. Watching the first clash, Lucy gulped. Are they taking this too seriously? And is it just me, or does Master Makarov look even more fired up than they do? Rather than worrying about that, said Rhodes from behind her. You should be more concerned about your safety. Lucy spun around to see that Rhodes had already pulled Myra back with him to a safer corner of the courtyard. Myra waved at her cheerfully. Why'd you retreat so far back? Lucy asked. I thought you'd already witnessed the collateral damage from when Mirza and Natsu get serious. Rhodes said, eyeing the crowd. And those people standing that close. They're way too confident. Collateral. Lucy turned back toward the match just in time to see the tip of Riz's sword whip past her face. The wind pressure alone made her skin tingle. She screamed, bolting out of the crowd and clutching her nose. That was way too close. Myra, am I bleeding? Myra leaned in, inspecting her. Nope. No blood. Lucy wiped her forehead, still pale. I seriously thought I was going to lose my nose. Happy floated beside her. Wow, Lucy's all sweaty again. It's sweat, and what do you mean again? Nearby, Gray, already shirtless, grumbled. Lucy, quit yelling. You're ruining the fight. I'm sorry, but seriously, Gray, can you not throw your shirt on me every time? Gray blinked down at his bare chest. Huh? Didn't even notice. Before long, more of the crowd had started backing up. Natsu's fire attacks weren't bothering Rizza thanks to her armor, but the same couldn't be said for the unlucky spectators standing behind her. One slash from Rizza's blade had already sliced someone's sleeve clean off. Everyone had to scramble to safer ground. It was worth it, though the match was incredible. Explosive, flashy, unpredictable. And most importantly, very dangerous. Now that they had more space to fight, the intensity of the battle kicked up even further. The heat alone was stifling, and the magical pressure shook the air. Natsu had taken a few hits, minor cuts here and there, but his whole body was now wreathed in fire. He was grinning madly, utterly alive in the thrill of battle. His combat style was wild and unstructured, yet he moved with a raw, animal-like intuition. Every dodge, every counter, every block was done with uncanny timing. Ursa, for her part, had swapped her sword style mid-fight. No longer wielding a single blade, she now held a sword in each hand, and even kicked her boots off at one point to grab a third with her toes. Her swordplay was dazzling, a blur of steel and strength. Her attacks weren't just powerful, they were creative and relentless. Rhodes stood at the edge, arms crossed. Compared to when Myra slammed his head into the floor 2 months ago, Natsu's improved again. He frowned slightly. It's honestly hard to get a read on this guy's real strength. Most of the time, he gets knocked out by one hit during a scuffle in the guild, but now he's going blow for blow with Rizza. Myra pressed her hands to her face in embarrassment. Ugh. Please don't bring up that moment again. She had some regrets about that incident. It had been less than graceful. Lucy blinked in shock. Wait, who slammed Natsu's head into the floor? Even though Lucy had seen Myra transform into her demon form before, she still couldn't quite picture it. Sweet, gentle Myra smashing Natsu's head into the ground? I had only just recovered my magic at the time, Myra explained, her tone soft and full of regret. Natsu insisted on challenging me, and I acted without thinking and did something a bit too excessive. She looked genuinely aggrieved as she said it, making Lucy immediately side with her. Clearly, this had to be Natsu's fault. Of course, Myra was also subtly trying to get Rhodes to forget the incident. Sure, she and Rhodes sparred plenty, and it was mutual, consented, and for training, but still. What if he started to think she was the type to commit domestic violence? What if he got scared and never proposed? He couldn't become a widower without even being married first. Rhodes wasn't fooled. He could tell Myra was laying it on a little thick. But when she put on that wronged and pitiful look, she became irresistibly cute, and perfectly huggable. So he pulled her into his arms without a word and gently hugged her to comfort her. Meanwhile, the duel between Natsu and Riza was heating up, quite literally. Riza had switched through several sets of armor during the fight, adapting constantly to Natsu's attacks. Eventually, she donned the purgatory armor, and with its overwhelming power and brutal weaponry, she completely turned the tide in her favor. The ground, which Rhodes had recently reinforced with mountain dragon earth magic, was now riddled with craters and gouges from their relentless exchange. Thankfully, Master Makarov, likely influenced by hanging around Rhodes too much, had the foresight to cast a protective barrier over the guild hall. That shield was the only reason there wasn't a massive repair bill waiting at the end of all this. Both fighters were grinning from ear to ear. Mirza was thrilled to see how far Natsu had come. And Natsu, he still hadn't given up. If Riza's going all out, then it's time I did too, he thought. As Riza lunged again, Natsu unleashed a flame breath midair, not as an attack, but to blast himself backward with a recoil. He landed lightly, gaining distance between them. That was when it happened. Without warning, a wave of drowsiness swept over the courtyard like a warm, magical fog. Lucy slumped forward with a soft squeak. Myra barely caught her in time. "Am mistaken?" Myra asked aloud, frowning. All around them, people were collapsing like dominoes. I won't let it end like this," Natsu growled, trying to resist the wave. But within moments, he too collapsed. Mirza dropped to one knee, bracing herself with the jagged blade of her purgatory armor. Her breathing was labored, and her eyelids heavy. But she hadn't fallen. Not yet. Her voice was defiant as she growled under her breath. Why? Why now of all times? Once Rhodes realized that it was Miss Togan behind the spell, he sighed softly, slumped against the wall, and opened his arms with a faint smile. "Guess it's that time again," he murmured, inviting Myra wordlessly with a subtle gesture. But instead of coming over, Myra gently helped Lucy settle down beside the wall. As the sleep magic slowly took hold of her too, a soft magical light shimmered across her body. A wooden, three-eyed demon mask materialized over her face, and her outfit transformed into a tribal-style dress woven from brown linen. She pushed the mask up to her forehead, revealing a serene smile as she looked at Rhodes. "I don't want to fall asleep like this again," she said gently. "This time, I'm going to see what Miss Togan actually looks like." "You're so sneaky," Rhodes muttered with a sleepy smile, already leaning his head back. "You could have told me earlier, I would have changed forms too." By the time she stepped away, Rhodes had already closed his eyes, drifting into a peaceful doze like the rest of the guild. Meanwhile, Miss Togan, as always, had cast his sleep-inducing magic across the guild before stepping through the doors. The silent, empty guild hall made him pause. What happened here? He wondered. Is everyone out on a mission? Before he could investigate further, soft footsteps echoed behind him. Myra appeared in the hall, still in her lullaby takeover form, her eyes glinting with amusement. "You really put the entire guild to sleep again? And still hiding your face?" she teased lightly. "Aren't you being a bit too cautious?" Startled, Miss Togan instinctively reached up to cover his mask. You're Mara Jane? Chapter 319, Let's go relax. Should I say it's been a while, or that it's our first meeting? Myra tilted her head, her gaze fixed on the masked figure in the black cloak before her. Either way, it doesn't really count as a real meeting, does it? She wasn't the only one in the guild curious about Miss Togan's face. Scratch that, everyone was curious. And not just curious, they wanted to punch him. After all, anyone who got knocked out cold every single time he walked through the door would be at least a little upset. Even Master Makarov admitted Miss Togan had his reasons, but that didn't mean they couldn't settle it with a fight. Fighting was a form of communication in fairy tale, after all. "Sorry," Mistogen said calmly, his voice muffled by the veil. I have my reasons. He was surprised by Myra's easygoing tone. But then again, she was an S-class wizard. This much composure was expected. As for the mask, well, last time he dropped his guard and trusted his magic too much, Lixus saw his true face. He wasn't going to make that mistake again. Mistogen quickly adjusted his posture and made his way to the request board. Is the master not here? He was watching Natsu and Riza's duel in the courtyard. Myra said with a small pout. But you kind of knocked everyone out and interrupted it. Apologies. Mistogen pulled down a job request from the board and handed it to Myra for approval. She took it, scribbled his name into the registry, and looked up with a cheeky grin. You sure I can't just get a peek under that veil? I'd rather not. It would cause complications. Then I'll just tell everyone you're horribly ugly, she said with mock innocence. Mistogen paused mid-step. Then, wordlessly, he kept walking. Myra sighed dramatically, resting her elbows on the counter. TCH. I'll really say it, too. Don't test me. Whatever burden Mistogen was carrying, he clearly wasn't ready to share it. Suddenly, a smooth, arrogant voice floated down from the second-floor balcony. Not gonna chase him down and throw hands? That's not like you. Myra glanced up. Lixus was leaning over the railing, arms crossed, electric eyes gleaming with challenge. Lixus? I heard the demon came back, he said, smirking. Guess the rumors were true. But you've gone soft. If caring about my guildmates makes me weak, Myra replied with a small, serene smile. Then I'm fine with being weak. TCH. Lame excuse. Before Myra could respond, the front doors burst open and a swarm of angry guildmates rushed in, shouting and looking for one specific person. Where is he? Mistogen, show yourself. Put us to sleep again? Just once, let me deck him before I pass out. Lixus didn't spare them a glance. His gaze stayed fixed on Myra. I heard you can't even beat Risa anymore, he said coldly. Guess you're not worth my time either. What do you mean by that, Lixus? Came a sharp voice from the entrance. Risa had returned. She stepped into the hall just in time to hear him badmouthing both her and Myra. I mean I'm the strongest, Lixus said, full of self-satisfaction. No one in this guild can touch me. Not Risa, not Myra, not Mistogen. His eyes flicked toward the ceiling. Not even that old man. Behind the rowdy mob, Rhodes walked in with Lucy, having stayed behind to explain Mistogen's quirks. Before Lucy had time to complain about Mistogen's weird behavior, she heard Lixus's declaration of the strongest. Who was that just now? Lucy asked, blinking at the tall blonde who just left. Lixus. Rhodes replied, glancing in the direction he disappeared. One of Fairy Tale's 5 S-class wizards. He's probably in his rebellious phase right now. He wasn't sure if it was normal to be acting like that at 23 or 24 years old, but Fairy Tale wasn't exactly a guild known for normal people. Wait, the same level as Miss Myra, Risa, and Mistogen? Then who's the fifth? That'd be an old guy named Guildarts. I haven't seen him either, Rhodes said with a shrug. Lucy's eyes widened. You've been in the guild almost a year and haven't met him? Yeah. Rhodes nodded. Apparently, he hasn't been back in over 2 years. He tilted his head, curious. But wait, you remembered how long I've been in the guild? Lucy looked away bashfully. I saw it in a magazine. You were listed as Fairy Tale's strongest rookie or something like that. Joined the guild about a year before me, so it just stuck in my memory. She had been following news about Fairy Tale even before she joined. In fact, the year Rhodes joined the guild happened to be the same year she ran away from home. That made it even more memorable. Huh. So we're fated, then. Rhodes joked. He thought carefully, is being fated to the main character is a good thing or a bad one? Meanwhile, across the room, Natsu had just finished looking around for Mistogen without luck. His eyes fell on Lixus instead. Hey! Fight me! He shouted, pointing dramatically. Gray let out an exasperated sigh. Didn't you just finish fighting Riz? Doesn't matter. Natsu growled, still glaring up at the second floor. Come down here already. Lixus smirked from the railing. Sure. I'll fight you. If you can come up. Oh, I'm coming up all right. Natsu said, charging for the stairs, only to be halted by Master Makarov, who stretched out one arm and stopped him like a roadblock. Hold it right there, Natsu. Makarov said firmly. You're not allowed on the second floor yet. Lixus grinned wickedly. Yikes, rejected by the master. Can't even set foot on the second floor, how are you supposed to fight me, salamander? Old man, come on. Natsu yelled, struggling against the master's surprisingly strong grip. Enough. Makarov said calmly, not even looking up from his drink. Wait until you're officially promoted to S-class. Lixus, that's enough. He added in a warning tone. Lixus chuckled but didn't push back. He turned and left, clearly satisfied with having stirred things up. The mood in the guild soured just a little. It wasn't just the people Lixus insulted who were annoyed. Even those who hadn't been targeted felt it. Lixus hadn't even spared them a glance, only Riza and Myra existed in his eyes. That stung. And knowing that he was the master's grandson, strong enough to possibly take over the guild one day, didn't help either. At this point, even if Riza ran the show with her iron grip, it'd still be better than letting someone like Lixus inherit the guild. If only Riza and Myra would just gang up and beat some sense into him. Or better yet, if Guild Arts came back soon. Otherwise, maybe Rhodes could step up. He hadn't been in the guild long, barely a year, but more and more people were starting to think, maybe he's the most suitable one. Rhodes, of course, was completely unaware that his name was being whispered in hopeful schemes. He was off in his own thoughts. It struck him how every time Lixus showed up, he managed to ruin the mood. Even though he was Master Mikarov's grandson, Lixus always gave off the vibe that he didn't quite belong in fairy tale. That air of superiority, it clashed with the warmth and chaos the guild was known for. Rhodes headed to the counter and gently took Myra's hand. Did Lixus say anything rude? Myra smiled lightly and shook her head. Not really. So that meant, yes. Rhodes leaned in and whispered conspiratorially. What if we jump him on the way out? We'll grab Ursa, Natsu, Gray, and Kana, throw a sack over his head, give him a good beating, and vanish. Myra widened her eyes. We can't do that. He only said a few words. It's not a big deal. Rhodes looked thoughtful. Still. Trying to brighten her mood, he grinned and changed the subject. Anyway, did you get to see Miss Token? I did. Myra replied, folding her arms with a pout. But he was wearing a mask and wouldn't take it off. So he's probably super ugly underneath, huh? Rhodes said with a straight face. We should tell everyone. Myra burst into laughter. Why is he just as petty as I am? You want to get out of here for a bit? Rhodes asked gently. He could still sense the slight heaviness in her expression. I'll pick out a mission for us. It's been a while since we went out together, and I promised we'd visit Wendy. Myra blinked in surprise, then nodded. Yeah. All right. Since it's for Wendy, I think the master will approve. Sweet. I'll go find a good one. Rhodes turned toward the job board. Chapter 320, Why do you know this kind of thing? Miss Myra. Lucy asked curiously. Why did Master say we're not allowed to go up to the second floor? Myra smiled gently as she polished a mug behind the counter. Because the missions posted up there are S-class jobs. They're far more dangerous than the ones downstairs. Lucy's eyes sparkled with wonder. Wow. So only S-class wizards are allowed to take them. That's right. Myra nodded. The rewards are amazing, sure, but even for an S-class mage, those missions are life-threatening. Lucy gulped, her expression turning sheepish. Even if you hadn't warned me, I wouldn't dare to try one. I mean, I'm nowhere near strong enough. I'm not Rizzo or you. Just then, Rhodes walked over to the counter, holding up a request slip. Myra, how about this one? He asked as he set it down. Myra looked at the paper and blinked. You decided already? Rhodes nodded seriously. Because this one is something I can't ignore. Myra glanced down at the job listing, Violet Town, missing girl case. Her expression softened. So that still weighs on your heart. She gave him a quiet nod and picked up the request. I'll talk to Master about it. We can't leave right away. Huh? Lucy leaned in, surprised. Miss Myra and Mr. Rhodes are going out on a mission together? Then she suddenly panicked. Wait, if you two leave, who are we supposed to talk to when we want to take a job? Rhodes raised an eyebrow, half amused, half exasperated. Lucy. You do realize that's the guildmaster's job, right? Oh. Right. Lucy smacked her forehead. I completely forgot Master's supposed to approve the jobs. I always just ask Miss Myra out of habit. Normally, the guild leader would handle approvals. Asking Myra or Rhodes was just something everyone got used to when they were around. Happy, munching a grilled fish, took the opportunity to chime in with his usual tact. Lucy's got the memory of a goldfish? He punctuated his insult by chomping the fish right on the head. Don't you dare bite the fish's head while insulting me, you rotten cat. Lucy shouted, grabbing a menu to swat him. Rhodes grabbed a pen and filled out the mission registration form himself. By the time he finished, Myra had already returned from speaking with Master Mikarov. Go home and pack up first, she said. I already keep everything I need on me. Rhodes replied casually. Just grab some food after you're done packing. Since earning enough money and learning magic that let him swap clothes instantly, Rhodes had taken to carrying spare clothes, a blanket, and common medicine with him at all times. Emergency mission? No problem, he was always ready. In that case, just come straight to my house. Myra nodded, heading off to inform Elfman that she'd be away for a while. Rhodes, meanwhile, whistled for Worm, telling the little creature to go back home once he was done playing. On the way to Myra's house, the two of them stopped at a few shops and bought some food for the road. If that wasn't enough, Myra said they could always raid her fridge before leaving. Rhodes had been to Myra's house plenty of times, so once they arrived, he made himself at home, pouring a glass of water as he settled in to wait. Myra was halfway up the stairs before she hesitated, turned, and stamped her foot. Don't just stand there like a dummy, come help me pack. Okay. Rhodes set down his glass and followed her upstairs. This was his first time actually stepping into her room. It was just as he imagined. Clean. Warm. And it smelled faintly of Myra herself, sweet, soft, and hard to describe. He couldn't quite decide if the decor was expected or not, but it was undeniably girly. The curtains were double-layered, pink blackout curtains over delicate white gauze. The sheets and pillows were soft shades of pink, the quilt a plush off-white, patterned with tiny animals. A giant plush cushion sat on the bed, vaguely shaped like maybe a wombat? A glass vase sat on her nightstand, holding fresh flowers. Judging by the green stems, they'd either been trimmed recently or freshly picked. For some reason, seeing those well-kept flowers made Rhodes feel warm inside. Like knowing Myra was taking care of herself, living a peaceful life made him happy too. That said, her room wasn't so obsessively tidy that it felt sterile. There was a bit of comfortable mess. A few bottles and jars of who knows what were clustered loosely on her vanity. A nightgown had been draped over the back of a chair, the edge of its skirt brushing the floor. And then, a black bra hung upside down from the window. Next to it, a lacy, triangle-cut piece of fabric, clearly matching, was slung over the curtain rod, the delicate black lace shimmering faintly in the light. Before Rhodes could even blink, Myra, with the lightning reflexes of a true S-class mage, snapped into action. Rhodes barely caught a glimpse of movement, just a shadow streaking past, and the next moment, the two hangers by the window were left swinging gently in the breeze. Myra had snatched her garments with lightning speed, back turned to him now, her shoulders stiff. Don't look around, she barked. Rhodes wisely redirected his gaze upward to the ornate magic chandelier hanging from the ceiling. Right. Totally wasn't looking. So, what do you want me to help you pack? Pick a few outfits you like. Myra muttered, still facing away. Her face was tinged red as she extended an arm toward the wardrobe. From that closet. And don't touch this one. So, he got to pick her outfits for the trip? Was she just being lazy, or was she giving him permission to decide what she'd be wearing for the next few days? Either way, Rhodes wasn't going to complain. Leave it to me, he said, rolling up his metaphorical sleeves. Trying hard to erase the mental image of the lace he'd just accidentally seen, Rhodes turned his full attention to the wardrobe. Myra might have usually worn elegant dresses around the guild, but her clothing collection was impressively diverse. Inside the spacious wardrobe were pieces that ranged from modest and graceful to sporty, chic, and well, blatantly daring. And this was after she'd packed away all her winter clothes. As a wizard, Myra's jobs often involve travel, dangerous terrain, and unpredictable battles. Long skirts and gowns might look nice, but practicality mattered too. Even high-slit skirts could get caught or torn in a fight. So Rhodes gravitated toward functional yet cute choices, t-shirts paired with skirts, lightweight blouses with shorts, and a couple of casual travel dresses. Cute and easy to move in. From where she was folding clothes behind him, Myra kept sneaking glances his way. And with every passing second, her suspicions deepened. Lots of short skirts. Definitely eyeing those crop tops. Was he picking all the outfits with bare legs? Did she wear long dresses too often? Was her usual wardrobe too conservative? She began rethinking her style on the spot. Maybe she should mix things up. Rhodes, blissfully unaware of the silent evaluation happening behind him, continued flipping through her closet. Once he'd picked out the prettier outfits, practicality kicked in. All right, he muttered to himself, pulling out a few more items. Better include a couple jackets and long pants. If we end up in the woods or somewhere damp, it's best to have full coverage. Maybe something water-resistant. Myra smiled as she listened. He really was thoughtful, even if he pretended not to be. She decided to give his choices a passing grade. Just as Rhodes was folding up the last outfit, something occurred to him. By the way, Myra, he said casually, turning to her. She asked, distracted, still stuffing something into a pouch. You know, he said, half serious, Before hanging up certain kinds of clothes, you're supposed to make sure they're fully wrung out. Myra froze. And it's best to hang them somewhere that gets good sunlight. At least make sure there's airflow. Otherwise, they might. Don't you dare finish that sentence. Myra spun around and hurled the small overnight bag at his face. Rhodes caught it, just barely, only for her to snatch it right back with a huff. Why do you know so much about drying underwear? Chapter 321, Cute, Want to Kidnap. Of course I learned it in school. Rhodes said matter-of-factly. Myra blinked. They teach that kind of thing in school? It sounded a bit sad, but it was true. Myra had never gone to school. Not just her, many in the guild hadn't received any formal education. Most learned basic literacy from elders, some at home from their parents before tragedies struck, others in church, or later in life after joining Fairy Tale. Natsu, oddly enough, probably had the strangest education. He said Neil taught him how to read and write. But when he got to Fairy Tale, he realized the human writing system was different. So Riza had pinned him down and personally re-educated him, with a fist when needed. Rhodes suspected dragons had their own written language, but Natsu insisted it was just the script that was different, not the spoken words. Unfortunately, after 7 years, he'd completely forgotten how to write in the dragon system. Nowadays, Magnolia had both magic schools and ordinary classrooms, but most folks weren't interested. As long as you could read job postings and do simple math, that was enough. Some who were passionate about magic theory or research pursued it, but those types were rare. Girls like Levy, who loved reading and had a deep reservoir of knowledge, were outliers. Myra had learned to read and write from her parents before they passed. Later, she taught Elfman and Lysena on her own. None of the Strauss siblings had attended a formal school, so Myra had no idea if what Rhodes mentioned was something actually taught in classrooms. She had learned about basic physiology on her own, slowly and sometimes painfully. There were moments in her youth she truly thought she was going to die from things no one had explained. Rhodes thought about that and felt a sudden pang of guilt, not just for Myra, but for so many of their guildmates who had grown up under similar hardship. In the school I went to, we learned stuff like that when we were around 12 or 13. At that age, Myra had already been out in the world, scraping together jobs just to feed herself and her younger siblings. On impulse, Rhodes pulled her into a hug. For someone like him, who had never gone hungry, who had never worried about survival, it was hard to truly imagine the weight Myra had carried for so long. What's this about all of a sudden? Myra asked, confused. Rhodes hesitated. The words "I'll take care of you from now on" sat at the tip of his tongue, but in the end, he softened it. "I'll tell you more about myself from now on." Myra rested her hand on his shoulder. "I thought you didn't like talking about your past." "I do now," he said quietly, ruffling her hair with a smile. "Okay," she whispered, nodding. "That's how it starts, right? Falling for someone, wanting to know them better. And slowly, wanting them to know you just as deeply. Maybe it wasn't the right order. Maybe it was. Either way, it didn't seem to matter anymore. What did matter was that Myra looked happier now. And that made Rhodes happy too. They'd ridden ferries, carriages, crabs, and even a magic four-wheeler together, but strangely, this was their first time taking a train. Train capacity in Fiore always seemed oddly generous. Even in the busiest hours, the cars were never full. Rhodes had never seen a packed cabin before. Not once. You'd think the railway company would cut a few carriages to save costs. How could they possibly turn a profit like this? Were they not worried about going out of business? Of course, the railway company's inefficiency wasn't something Rhodes particularly cared about. Having an empty carriage all to themselves was actually perfect. It meant peace, quiet, and uninterrupted time with Myra as they traveled through the countryside. When he got tired of looking out the window, he simply rested his head on Myra's lap, watching the scenery pass by from that very cozy angle. And Myra? Myra was clearly in an excellent mood. Before they left, she'd even changed into the very first outfit Rhodes had picked out from her closet, a white, off-the-shoulder t-shirt, knotted stylishly at the hem to reveal her waist, paired with short blue denim shorts and a loosely slung white belt that served more as a fashion accent than actual function. From where Rhodes lay, her fairy tale mark was temptingly within reach. He reached out to brush his fingers over it but got a light slap on the hand. So, naturally, he redirected his attention to gently rubbing her stomach instead. Myra didn't stop him. It was private, comfortable, and admittedly relaxing. In return, she coiled her fingers in his hair and rhythmically ruffled it. Rhodes suspected this wasn't a reward, but punishment cleverly disguised as affection. Eventually, they swapped positions. Myra laid across his lap, and he entertained himself by fiddling with the little clip in her hair, occasionally removing her rubber band just to retie her ponytail and test his hairstyling skills. She looked fine lying flat, but her side profile was a little distractingly cute. So, to stop himself from getting too distracted, Rhodes pulled out the mission file to review. He told himself it was about strengthening his focus, some kind of self-discipline test. Truthfully, Myra just made concentrating a bit of a challenge. He had to stay sharp. Last time, things had gone sideways even though it wasn't due to their negligence. This time, they couldn't afford any mistakes. Violet Town. Rhodes murmured, flipping through the mission notes. They say the place is as lovely as its name. And the girls there are beautiful. Ow. That wasn't me, that's what one of the older guys in the guild said. He rubbed the sore spot on his side where Myra had pinched him. Still, his tone turned grim as he pointed to the core concern. This might be exactly why the town was targeted. There are reports of criminal groups kidnapping underage girls, training them, then selling them across the sea. Myra's smile vanished. She'd read the briefing earlier, but now she leaned in to look at the specific parts Rhodes had marked. He pointed at a stretch on the sample map included with a request. There's a road here that leads straight to the harbor. If they take it and ride hard, they can be on a ship in under 2 hours. If that happens, they're gone. We'll lose them. Myra nodded, her expression hardening. And a smuggling ship like that won't dock at an official port. They'll transfer at sea or wait off the coast. We can't just sit around and wait. The southern coastline is too long. Rhodes said with a sigh. We can't monitor every inch of it. What are we going to do, scatter void knights across the entire shore and have them bite every ship that comes near? He leaned back against the seat, frustrated. At best, we can head to Violet Town and wait for the traffickers to strike again. But that means letting them grab another child just to trace them, and I don't want to just stand there and watch that happen. Myra didn't speak. Her expression darkened. A pulse of magic flickered across her hand as it briefly transformed into her demon form, sharp-clawed, ominous, and just as quickly shifted back. I'll be honest, she said coldly. If it means stopping people like that, I'm perfectly fine being a demon. Rhodes frowned deeply. I get it. But there's still a risk. If we move too early and catch the wrong guy, it might scare the others off. They'll tighten security, change routes, or just vanish. They sat in silence for a few moments, both of them thinking. Then Myra looked up with a glint in her eyes. Well, there is another option. Rhodes turned to her, curious. Yeah? We use bait. He raised a brow. You mean fake a kidnapping? Exactly. We send in someone who looks like the perfect target, she said, voice calm. Then we let them take the bait and follow them back to the source. A classic sting operation, but dangerous. Rhodes immediately thought of Wendy. She was small and innocent looking, but... No. He said aloud, rejecting the idea. Wendy's off limits. She said herself she's not good in combat. If anything happened to her, I'd feel guilty for life. Myra waved her hand dismissively. No, I wasn't talking about Wendy. With a burst of white light, her body shimmered and shifted, growing smaller, younger. In moments, she had taken on the form of her younger self, complete with high ponytail, a giant ribbon in her hair, and wide, teary-looking eyes. She clasped her hands together, tilted her head, and said in a trembling voice. Mister. Can you help me? I'm lost. Rhodes blinked, stunned. Wait. Isn't that what you actually looked like as a kid? Myra grinned and batted her lashes. So? Think they'd want to kidnap me? I want to kidnap you right now. Rhodes muttered under his breath. Myra feigned a gasp, then gave him a pout. So scary. Will Big Brother protect me? That only made it worse. Now Rhodes really wanted to kidnap her. He exhaled heavily. If you keep playing like this, I'm going to be the one arrested the moment we step off this train. Chapter 322, Wendy's choreograph. First the train, then the ship. Rhodes was already familiar with this route. They had left around noon, and by the time they arrived in Harj, it was already late afternoon. A ferry was waiting, but it would be an overnight trip across the sea. With time running short, they didn't dawdle. The two of them bought tickets and grabbed some food before boarding. The skies were overcast, so thankfully there was no need for sunscreen. While sitting in their cabin, they reviewed the mission again, going over every possible scenario that might unfold once they arrived. What if they use sleeping gas? Myra asked. What if they try to knock us out with clubs? Rhodes countered. What if they try a murder-suicide? Should we chop them up and feed them to the dogs? Myra suggested sweetly. Or toss them to the sea for the fish. Rhodes added, grinning. As if on cue, a splash cut through the waves. The crab that Rhodes had summoned earlier to keep watch suddenly vanished. Gone. Swallowed whole. A shadow passed beneath the boat, dark and massive, cloaked in natural camouflage. Rhodes couldn't even make out the full shape. But he knew it was big. That thing. Might have been a big piranha. He muttered. Better warn the captain. Before he could move, a harpoon whistled through the air, fired from the stern of the ferry. A trailing rope whipped after it, taut and trembling as soon as the harpoon struck. Blood sprayed across the water, and the entire ship gave a violent jolt. Then came the voice of the captain, calm but firm over the loudspeaker. Attention passengers. Please remain calm. A large piranha has been spotted and struck by our crew. Slight vibrations may occur while we reel it in. I repeat. Please remain calm. He repeated it once more, just to be safe. Naturally, the announcement drew a crowd. Passengers flocked to the deck railings to watch, oohing and eyeing as the sailors flexed their muscles and reeled the beast in with practiced effort. Someone fired a second harpoon for good measure. The sea was already turning red. The giant fish thrashed less and less with each passing second. The splashing of blood left even seasoned travelers feeling a bit nauseous. Within minutes, the creature was dragged to the surface and lifted out of the water with pulleys. A monster, 10 meters long, jaws like a bear trap, fangs jagged as broken blades. This was the real thing. A true open-sea piranha. Sometimes, they'd been known to attack smaller fishing vessels. Just one bite could take off a limb, or a whole person. Rhodes figured the captain was putting on a show, reeling the thing up to boast, "See? You're safe. Even when monsters show up, we've got it handled." Truthfully, though, each harpoon was embedded with magic crystals. Technically, the sailor who fired it qualified as a low-grade battle mage. Still, it was impressive. As night fell, the excitement on deck faded. One by one, passengers wandered back to their cabins. Rhodes and Myra returned to theirs and sat down to eat. Technically, the ferry had its own little restaurant on board, but Myra had refused to go. "Too expensive," she said. "And it tastes bad. Might as well buy food from the market before we leave." Windy and Gray had said the same thing before. In fact, Rhodes had never once actually tried the food served on these ships. For all he knew, the kitchen served the equivalent of a 10-jewel lunchbox, the kind that goes on sale for $5 right before the train leaves the station. That said, the ship's accommodations weren't exactly luxurious either. The double room Rhodes had booked turned out to be a bunk bed. Rhodes had no idea which genius came up with this. It definitely wasn't like this the last time he traveled by ferry. But then again, last time they were with a larger group, and Riza had been the one buying tickets. She was rich and had gone for the best suite. He'd gotten careless. No wonder Meyer didn't say anything when he bought the tickets, she must have known. And when they entered the cabin and saw the cramped bunk beds, Myra burst out laughing, clutching her stomach as she watched Rhodes's expression twist in disbelief. That night, they didn't even bother changing clothes. The sleep was mediocre at best. But when you're traveling, sometimes you just have to rough it. By the time they disembarked the next morning, the sun was rising over the shore. After grabbing a light breakfast, they immediately headed toward their target, Violet Town. Back in Magnolia, however, chaos had broken out in the guild. Ursa, who was temporarily handling Myra's responsibilities, had just made a startling discovery. "Master, one of the S-class mission slips from the second floor is missing," she said gravely. Did Myra or Rhodes accept an S-class job? Master Mikarov nearly spat his tea. What? No, Myra and Rhodes accepted a standard commission, a 1 million jewel reward. Miss Hogan didn't visit the board yesterday either. Which mission is missing? It's the one for Karna Island. Urza replied. The reward was 7 million jewels. Plus a Zodiac Celestial Spirit Key. There weren't many S-class jobs to begin with. Urza remembered each one clearly. Karna Island. The island of the cursed demon. Mikarov muttered, his brows furrowed. He didn't know the full details of that mission, but anything involving a demon curse was never simple. And the Celestial Spirit Key. His heart sank. Could Lucy have gone up there without realizing the rules? From the second floor railing, a familiar, smug voice cut in. Actually, I saw a certain thieving cat sneak off with a mission slip last night. You know, the one with wings. Gasps spread throughout the hall. Happy? Then. Natsa must be behind this. Lixus leaned casually against the railing, watching the guild like it was a stage. This is a serious offense, Gramps. Taking an S-class job without permission? That's grounds for expulsion, isn't it? Mikarov was silent. Lixus didn't miss a beat. He emphasized the word expulsion deliberately, clearly still holding a grudge over Mikarov expelling his father Ivan from the guild. Though maybe we won't even need to go that far. Lixus added with a dark chuckle. With their level of power, they probably won't survive that mission anyway. Urza's tone turned sharp. Then why didn't you stop them? Lixus shrugged. I just saw the cat scurrying away with a piece of paper in its mouth. How was I supposed to know they'd actually go through with it? I mean, come on. How stupid can you get? Enough. Makariv said. His voice was low but resolute. Bring them back immediately. Lixus snorted. Don't look at me. I've already picked my own mission. He tilted his head toward Urza, his grin oozing arrogance. That's your job, right? You may not be as strong as me, but at least you're better than the rest of the trash. Master, this is my fault. Urza said seriously, ignoring Lixus's mockery entirely. Myra specifically entrusted me with watching the request board. I failed to stop this. I'll go and bring them back immediately. Hold up. Gray slammed his hand on the table and stood up. I'm not gonna sit here and let that jerk talk like that. I'll go after Nazi myself. Meanwhile, far from the rising tension back at the guild, Rhodes and Myra had arrived in Violet Town. Just as its name suggested, the place was a vision of springtime beauty, lush with vibrant violet blossoms that stretched across cobblestone streets and wrapped around charming wooden balconies. But neither of them had the heart to admire the scenery. They had just met with the client, and the news was grim. The missing girl hadn't been seen for 3 days. I'm heading out, Myra said quietly. Rhodes gave her a small nod. Be careful. In an instant, Myra's appearance changed. Her long white hair faded into a soft, sky blue hue, tied loosely behind her ears. She shrank in height and stature, her posture shifting into something more childlike. The spell transformed her into an innocent-looking, small girl, one that closely resembled a younger version of Levim Garden, but with subtle tweaks to avoid drawing suspicion. This was the form they had finally settled on after careful discussion. Myra was too well known. Even out here in Violet Town, there was a risk, however slim, that someone might recognize her. They couldn't afford that. Now disguised as a wandering child, Myra limped slowly through the streets. Her clothes were rumpled, her hair unkempt, and after a few steps, she deliberately stumbled and fell onto the cobblestones. Tears welled up in her wide eyes, and her bottom lip trembled as she pushed herself up again, glancing around as if utterly lost. She was the perfect picture of a scared little girl who'd run away from home and couldn't find her way back. Watching from a discreet distance, Rhodes felt an unexpected tightness in his chest. She looked so vulnerable it hurt to watch. And her movements, especially that dramatic little trip and fall, seemed strangely familiar. Rhodes narrowed his eyes thoughtfully. Was that Wendy's choreography? Chapter 323, Open. Gate of the Scorpion. Myra certainly wasn't on her own. Rhodes had already transformed into a merc wolf, hidden deep in the alley shadows some distance away, silently keeping watch. He didn't think a few low-level traffickers could pose any real danger to Myra, but what worried him were tricky, unexpected types of magic. For that, he had prepared thoroughly, both physically and magically. Was this what they called being unwilling to sacrifice your wife to lure out the wolf? Well, in this case, his wife wolf would probably just scare the wolf off before it even approached. Aku, the adorable little blue-haired girl, sneezed, looking more pitiful than ever. With Myra's top-tier acting skills, someone finally took the bait. 3 men appeared. One brushed past her and stopped at the alley's edge, eyes sweeping their surroundings but never approaching her directly. The other 2 came in from opposite sides of the street, spaced just far enough apart to look like they didn't know each other. One of them walked right past Myra, pulled out a cigarette, and lit it casually. The smoke swirled unnaturally, winding its way toward her. Rhodes, watching from the shadows, narrowed his eyes. Myra instantly realized what kind of smoke it was. She held her breath, staggered forward a few steps, then feigning drowsiness, collapsed limply to the ground. Right on cue, the 3rd man whipped out a burlap sack and threw it over her head, expertly tying it off with practiced hands. Then, like a stage magician pulling off a trick, he took out a long carrying pole and 2 large baskets, tossed the sack into one, balanced the load, and walked off like a traveling merchant. The 3 never acknowledged each other. They split off and left in separate directions, blending into the town as if nothing had happened. Their tactics were shockingly well rehearsed. It was no wonder they hadn't been caught before. Rhodes, crouched in the shadows, couldn't help but think of something ironic. Just a few days ago, he and Myra had been joking about putting a sack over Lixus's head and roughing him up. Now Myra was the one in the sack. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. Rhodes made sure to memorize the scent of the 2 unarmed men but didn't summon any wild monsters to follow them. He didn't want to spook the operation just yet. Instead, he followed behind the merchant carrying Myra, slinking through the darkness in his wolf form. At one point, they crossed paths with the town's patrol squad. Rhodes tensed, until the merchant casually stopped to chat with the patrol captain like an old friend. Rhodes's expression darkened. So the trafficker was well acquainted with the local authorities. This was bad. If he and Myra had gone to meet with the mayor right away, they might have tipped off the whole network. Luckily, Myra's current appearance was disguised well. Her little face was smudged with soot, and blue hair wasn't exactly rare in Fiore. Even if someone thought she looked familiar, they probably wouldn't make the connection. The trafficker took a winding route out of town. When asked by locals where he was headed, he casually replied that he was taking goods to a nearby village. But instead, he slipped into a narrow forest trail. After circling deeper into the woods, he eventually arrived at a desolate mountainside path. Rhodes followed him until the environment became too open for him to remain unseen. With no better choice, he quickly shifted into his Krug form. He burrowed just beneath the soil's surface, leaving only his horned head poking up like a rock. The head of Rhodes blended perfectly with the rocky terrain, completely indistinguishable from the surrounding stones. Down in the hollow of the rugged mountain, a weathered thatched cabin stood out against the otherwise barren valley. Two men emerged, one rotund, the other wiry and sharp-faced. "You're late," grumbled the fat one. "What took you so long today? Don't talk like you've got it easy." The peddler shot back, setting down the wooden pole with its twin baskets. "The patrols are everywhere lately. It's not like before, no kid dares wander off alone anymore." He knelt and untied the sack in one of the baskets, revealing a frail, dust-covered child inside. The fat man squinted down at the cargo and licked his lips. "Bit dirty, but looks like a real gem. No wonder they say girls from your town are something else." "Yeah, well, it won't be my town for much longer." The peddler rolled his shoulders, clearly done with it all. "This'll be the last one. Judging from how quiet it's been lately, we'd have to break into homes next time just to find anyone." Transformation magic had once again done its job well. Despite being one of the strongest women in fairy tale, Myra in her child form weighed no more than a small girl. It was one of the quirks of transformation magic, physical mass seemed to scale down as the body shrank. The scrawny thug grabbed the sack and slung it over his shoulder as if carrying a pillow. "With Misty's smoke magic? Who cares if we do break into homes? The plan's set," said the fat one. "That makes 9. When Black Bear gets back from Layla Village with number 10, we'll wait for Misty and the others, then ship them all out." The name Layla Village made Rhodes' eyes narrow. That was the fake destination the peddler had used as a cover. "We're really trusting Black Bear with this?" the peddler asked, clearly uneasy. "He's way too hot-headed." "It's the last one," said the fat man, waving off his concern. "Even if he roughs someone up, what are a bunch of farmers gonna do?" Inside the musty shack, Myra, still playing the unconscious child, was itching to break her cover and knock every last one of them flat. But after hearing that a 10th child might still be in danger, she suppressed the urge. Rhodes, from his hidden vantage point, had the same thought. But instead of charging in, he quietly slipped away from the hillside and summoned a pack of wolves, dispatching them toward Layla Village. If Black Bear tried anything reckless, they would intercept him before real harm could be done. Only once his scouts were on the move did Rhodes return to his position and resume watching. He clicked his tongue quietly. If only he had telepathy magic, he could have passed updates to Myra without blowing his cover. Or at the very least, chatted while they waited. It would have made surveillance less dull and tactical coordination smoother. Not long after, 2 more men arrived, more of the peddler's accomplices, by the look of it. They were likely the ones responsible for lookout duty during the abduction. From inside the cabin, the soft whimpers of frightened children drifted outward. At the end of the winding dirt road, 2 figures finally appeared. One was carrying a sack slung over his shoulder, and the other followed a step behind. From a distance, they looked like ordinary travelers, but those watching from the shadows knew better. "They're finally back." Misty, who had been crouching at the door with a cigarette between his lips, stood up and stretched. "All right, haul the kids in and get ready to move." That made 7 in total now, the fat man, the thin man, the peddler trio, and the 2 from Black Bear's crew. Rhodes watched from beneath the earth, perfectly camouflaged and undetectable. Myra, disguised and hidden within the shack, was ready to act. The moment they secured all the children, she would unleash her takeover, lullaby form and knock them unconscious with her magic. They'd be able to escape without traumatizing the kids. Rhodes, meanwhile, was holding back his wild monsters, knowing that summoning them might scare the children. Myra's lullaby magic was the perfect answer. But then, something unexpected happened. Just as the man carrying the sack, supposedly Black Bear, reached the front of the shack, he didn't drop the sack into the cart like he was supposed to. Instead, he turned toward Misty and spoke in a gravelly, deliberate voice. Black Bear's opinion of Misty, cautious, relies on smoke magic, a little too fussy. And annoying. Rhodes, still hidden, blinked. That wasn't just weird, it was a clear cue. Something was off. Misty squinted. "What are you talking about?" The man turned toward the peddler next. Black Bear's opinion of Puddle, pretends to be tough, uses transformation magic, calls himself a magic swordsman, but his combat skills are trash. Puddle staggered back in confusion. "What the?" "You're not Black Bear!" Misty shouted, raising his hand and pointing the cigarette like a wand at the man in the cloak. "And who the hell is that behind you? Take over, Black Bear!" The man let out a beastly roar as his form shifted violently. Fur burst from his skin, his limbs bulked up, and his teeth lengthened into jagged fangs. In an instant, he had taken on the form of a towering black bear. Before Misty could react, the transformed bear lunged forward and slammed a massive paw straight into his chest. Boom! The smoke magic didn't even have time to trigger. Misty flew backward, crashing into a tree with a sickening crunch, falling limp and unconscious. Padril, now trembling, drew a long sword from his belt but didn't dare approach. He's snapped. He's gone crazy. Somebody, help. The remaining 4 rushed over, the fat one, the thin one, and the 2 other scouts. Just then, the cloaked figure stepped forward from the tree line. The voice that rang out was crisp and cold. "Well, since you're all here, this saves me the trouble of hunting you down." The thugs turned their attention to the speaker, but all they saw was a slender silhouette cloaked in black. "Who the hell are you? What did you do to Black Bear?" The figure didn't answer directly. Instead, she reached out from beneath her cloak, revealing a gloved hand, and 2 gleaming golden keys between her fingers. Rhodes' eyes widened beneath the soil. Celestial spirit keys, and not just any, those were gold. The keys of the Zodiac. Open. Gate of the Scorpion. Scorpio. Chapter 324, "It's just a small guild with only a few people, yeah," shouted Scorpio as he burst onto the scene, his signature, beat-dropping intro loud and proud like a magic-powered DJ. "A celestial spirit mage?" one of the traffickers exclaimed, clearly startled. Despite their criminal path, even they knew what a celestial spirit was, and how dangerous they could be in battle. But what made them nervous wasn't just the presence of a star spirit. It was the fact that their supposed ally, the Black Bear, was now standing guard in front of the cloaked summoner, clearly not on their side anymore. "We've come this far. Don't worry about the spirit, just take down the summoner," one of them yelled in desperation. Wishful thinking. The Black Bear didn't even flinch. Instead, Scorpio raised his massive scorpion tail and unleashed a violent sandstorm. A roaring tornado of sand erupted across the clearing, battering all 4 traffickers with force strong enough to send them flying through the trees. None of them got back up. And just as quickly as it started, the towering beast vanished, replaced by 2 identical, round-faced blue figures. "Beep, beep, mission complete." They chorused in sync. It was Gemini, Gemmy and Minnie, the twin celestial spirits of duality and mimicry. Rhodes, still concealed and observing from a distance, spotted the golden celestial key in the cloaked summoner's hand. His eyes narrowed in surprise. Not only had she summoned Scorpio, whose sand magic was leagues stronger than Lucy's Taurus or Cancer, but she also had Gemini. That meant she held at least 2 zodiac keys. And if Gemini could perfectly mimic someone like the Black Bear, along with his transformation magic and brute strength, then the tactical value was tremendous. Though he suspected there were likely limits to what or whom they could copy, depending on strength and memory. "There should be no one else," the cloaked woman said coolly, walking toward the shack. But as she approached, she suddenly stopped, eyes narrowing beneath her hood. Inside, Myra, still in disguise as a blue-haired little girl, was curled up in the corner. The woman squinted suspiciously. "How did those idiots even manage to bag someone like you?" Realizing she'd been found out, the little girl stuck out her tongue. A puff of white smoke rose up as her disguise vanished, revealing the real Mara Jane Strauss, smiling with her usual grace. The cloaked woman took a small step back in visible surprise. "You're the demon Mara Jane?" "Yep, I'm the real Mara Jane. S-class wizard of fairy tale," she said brightly. "I came here on request to investigate the missing children." That was the power of a reputation. Myra had been instantly recognized, even without her full magic revealed. Myra gave a calm, gentle nod. "What about you?" Her tone remained warm, since this person had just helped defeat the traffickers and protect the children. But Myra also chose not to mention Rhodes, who was still hidden nearby, just in case. If this woman had any hostile intent, Rhodes was likely planning to knock her out with a sneak attack. The cloaked summoner, however, seemed uninterested in further conversation. "I see. Had I known you were on the job, I wouldn't have bothered interfering." She turned to leave, calling her spirits back to her. "Wait." Myra called after her. "Weren't you here because you took the job too?" The woman paused only slightly. "No. Just happened to pass by. Not interested in the rest of this. Since you're here on official work, I'll leave the aftermath to you." Myra asked again. "What's your name? At least tell me your guild, so I can thank you later." "No need. We're just a small guild with only a few members. A big name like you might scare my companions." The cloaked woman walked away, her voice fading with each step. Myra stood quietly for a moment, watching her go. She couldn't shake the feeling that the woman was wary of her. Was it because of the title demon Jane? Or did Fairy Tale's reputation intimidate her? Inside the hut, a slightly older girl stepped hesitantly to the door and asked, "Big sister, did you come to save us?" Myra turned to her with a warm smile. "Yes. It's all right now. I'll take you all home soon." Tears immediately welled up in the girl's eyes. Wah! Sniff! Wah! Suddenly, all 8 girls inside the hut burst into tears. For the past few days, they hadn't dared to cry. Now that it was over, everything came out at once. Myra began comforting them one by one. She did her best, but she was clearly flustered trying to calm so many at once. Placing her hands on her hips, she shouted toward the door. "Are you seriously not coming out to help me?" "I'm coming." Rhode's voice answered as he rose from the ground. He brushed off some dirt and added, "I was just thinking about how strange that woman was." Myra gave him a sharp look. "You didn't send your wolves to follow her, did you?" Rhode looked up at the sky, visibly sheepish. They were already out tracking Black Bear. So when they saw her, they just followed. "Not exactly my fault." His expression suddenly shifted to surprise. He seemed conflicted. "They're gone," he said. Myra raised an eyebrow. "She killed them." "Yeah," Rhode admitted. "She noticed them that fast and eliminated them. Without even making a scene." Myra frowned. "So she's very cautious." Rhode nodded. "Too cautious. She backed away when she saw you, didn't send her spirits back to the celestial realm when leaving, and her magic power. It's not just strong. It's refined. Her Scorpio was much more powerful than Lucy's Taurus or Cancer, and those Gemini spirits copied the Black Bear and used his transformation magic perfectly." He crossed his arms, deep in thought. "I need to check known celestial spirit mages when we get back. Someone that's skilled, with more than one zodiac key, can't be a nobody." Myra placed a hand on his arm. "Think about it later. Right now, let's get the children home." "Right," Rhode said, snapping out of it. He summoned Worm. Sure enough, even though it was a little big, the round, fluffy creature immediately won the hearts of the children. Especially when Worm rolled over and revealed its soft, pink, heart-shaped belly, inviting them to give it gentle pats. The girls completely melted. They nearly forgot their recent fears, surrounding Worm excitedly and showering him with pets and hugs. Thankfully, Worm had grown bigger. Otherwise, 8 kids clinging to him would have overwhelmed the poor thing. Rhodes watched from the side, completely reassured. Worm was not just a freeloader, he was the perfect creature for comforting little ones. If he ever received another mission involving children, he would definitely send Worm out first. Meanwhile, the cloaked woman who had just taken out the wolves let out a quiet breath. She recognized them for what they were, summoned beasts belonging to the one they called the Tamer. Lately, he'd gained a new nickname: Fairy Strategist. She wasn't surprised. That man was known for being cautious and troublesome. Her role in her own guild involved intelligence gathering and battle strategy, so she made a habit of memorizing key information about powerful wizards from rival guilds. Still, even after dealing with the wolves, she didn't lower her guard. She pretended to send her celestial spirits back to the spirit realm, but she kept a firm grip on the keys. Rather than returning to her base immediately, she took a long, roundabout path. Once she felt she'd put enough distance between herself and any potential tail, she sent a signal to request contact with their leader through telepathy. Not long after, a young man with reddish-brown hair descended from the sky, riding a massive purple serpent with leathery wings. "Angel, you've been gone too long," he said as he landed. "Don't just blurt out my name like that the moment you arrive," she snapped. "Relax. I already checked the area. No one's watching, and I didn't sense any magic beasts either," he replied with casual confidence. Angel, now clearly the woman in the cloak, exhaled slowly, her grip loosening slightly. Before she could say anything else, the young man nodded knowingly. "I get it. You ran into someone tricky. Didn't the leader warn us not to get involved with unnecessary conflicts?" Angel sighed. "If I didn't get involved, someone from a regular guild would have. If they started digging and found our trail, it would have been a disaster. And yet, I was too slow. Worse, I almost got exposed. You say one thing, but your actions say something else." "What did you just say?" The young man tapped his ear with a mischievous smile. "You know me. I hear everything." Angel rolled her eyes. "Sometimes, your ears are really annoying." "Do you think so?" he replied softly, stroking the head of his massive serpent mound. His tone shifted, quiet and introspective. "But sometimes, I feel like they're not sharp enough. I still miss things." "Huh?" Angel tilted her head. "What did you say?" He chuckled again, voice light and teasing. See? That's what I mean. It's the downside of not having sensitive ears. Angel muttered under her breath, fighting the urge to slap him. Chapter 325, Wendy's efforts. There was a lot to wrap up afterward. First came comforting the rescued children and escorting them home safely. Next, they had to deal with the traffickers, tie them up and prepare for their return to the authorities. Fortunately, the Kingdom of Fiore had well-established laws for handling criminals like these, and Rhodes was quite sure none of them would be living comfortably after incarceration. For security, if any of them regained consciousness along the way, Rhodes would summon the two-headed wolf to glare at them up close. The intimidating beast usually scared them right back into unconsciousness. If that didn't work, well, knocking them out again was always an option. Unfortunately, Rhodes wasn't having much luck with that today. Normally, one good hit would do the trick, but this time it took several attempts, and some of them kept waking up. In the end, S-Class Wizard Mara Jane had to step in personally and take care of it. But just capturing the culprits wasn't enough. Myra also used a crab to travel to village to confirm that the real black bear had been intercepted before he could harm anyone and, thankfully, he hadn't even gotten close to the children. She brought the actual black bear back with her and presented him to the client, the town mayor. The mayor was clearly shocked when he recognized one of the traffickers as a local resident. Meanwhile, the captain of the town guard looked devastated. He saw these people every day and hadn't noticed a thing. Rhodes actually thought that might have been for the best. If the guards had noticed something strange, they probably wouldn't be alive anymore. Sure, Scorpio had taken them all down in one shot, but these were wizards. Against a surprise smoke spell and a transforming black bear, normal townsfolk wouldn't stand a chance. Since this was a case of wizards committing serious crimes, the mayor immediately contacted the Magic Council. Say what you will about the council's behavior in other cases, but when it came to crimes like this, they knew how to handle it properly. Rhodes and Myra, joined by the mayor, personally escorted the rescued children back to their homes and made absolutely sure no other children were missing from the town. Only after confirming everything did they officially wrap up the mission. Even after receiving their reward, the pair stayed until the council's agents arrived and took custody of the criminals. They didn't want to leave anything unfinished. Myra understood Rhodes's caution. After everything that had happened with Liz, he couldn't help but worry about accidents, even now. So she let him take the lead, as much for his peace of mind as for safety. But the next time we run into that celestial spirit mage, you have to apologize. Myra reminded him gently. I know. If we ever meet her again. Rhodes muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. In that situation, Myra had been the only person he trusted completely. Honestly, if things had gotten worse, he'd been ready to double-check the children themselves to be sure there weren't any tricks. It was a messed up thing to think, but that's what experience had taught him. After a long, busy day, the two decided to rest in town for the night. The mayor, grateful and enthusiastic, insisted on arranging the best suite in the hotel for them. So of course, they ended up in separate rooms, in the same suite. That kind of unnecessary enthusiasm. It was comforting, really. After a long day, they could enjoy something simple. After their bath, Rhodes and Myra took turns drying each other's hair, lounging in their pajamas and nightgowns, enjoying those small, tender benefits of companionship. The next morning, they stood side by side at the sink to wash up. Rhodes snored once and lazily splashed water onto his face. Myra, of course, had to tie up her long silver hair first so it wouldn't fall over her cheeks. Only after securing it with a cute headband did she wash her face properly. It was a peaceful scene. Routine, but precious. After breakfast, the two packed up their things and strolled hand in hand through the quiet town streets. If we're going to visit Wendy and Carla, shouldn't we bring a gift? Myra asked, a bit regretful. It's a shame we didn't prepare anything before leaving Magnolia. I got so caught up in the mission I forgot. Rhodes smiled and said. Don't worry. I've already brought Wendy the best possible gift. Oh? Myra nodded, but her eyes twinkled mischievously. Wendy's such a sweet girl. How lucky to receive the best gift. Rhodes immediately began sweating. I mean, it's not really a gift. He stammered, waving his free hand. It's just some news. We should still get a souvenir or two while we're here. Myra giggled, clearly enjoying herself. She raised their joined hands and gave his a little shake. But isn't the best gift already in my hand? If you keep talking like that, I really will propose, Rhodes thought helplessly. Her words reminded him of an old cheesy love confession from some audio skit, but Myra's way of saying it hit far harder. Rhodes, suddenly overwhelmed, scooped her up in his arms and spun around twice in the middle of the street. Myra squealed with surprise and laughter, drawing stares and smiles from nearby passers-by. But he didn't care. Every time Rhodes returned to the Kate shelter, he felt a strange sense of nostalgia. It was as if the entire place had just changed seasonal decorations but remained frozen in time otherwise. Despite being located in a remote corner of the continent, it was a wonder how the Kate Shelter, a guild that had existed for over 400 years, managed to retain its ancient ways and peaceful lifestyle. Today, Wendy looked more lively than ever. She wore twin ponytails with adorable red devil horn clips and a green off-shoulder dress that brought out her gentle complexion and bubbly charm. Cute as ever. When Rhodes and Myra arrived, Wendy was sitting with her neighbor Magna, learning how to weave. Lately, Wendy had developed a deep interest in the ancient crafts and traditions of the Nervit tribe. She often went door to door in the village, asking the elders to teach her whatever they could. The villagers were more than happy to oblige. They taught her everything from weaving and tanning leather to wood carving, hunting techniques, and how to craft various handmade tools. She'd never shown much interest in these things before, but the moment she asked, it seemed like everyone in the tribe wanted to pass their knowledge down to her. Just a few days ago, Wendy had even put aside her magic training to fully dedicate herself to mastering these traditional skills. She became so busy that she was working day and night, barely taking time to rest. In the end, it was Chief Rubal, leader of the Nervit tribe, who finally stepped in. He gently advised Wendy to pace herself, not wanting her dedication to end up affecting her health or her magical development. Rubal had guessed what was really going on with Wendy, but he chose not to say anything aloud. There was a quiet understanding between them. Still, Wendy could be surprisingly stubborn. Even after agreeing to resume her practice, she insisted on continuing her cultural studies alongside it. She hadn't left the village in several months now. At first, Carla tried to talk Wendy out of overworking herself. But eventually, seeing Wendy's resolve, she began supporting her fully. In fact, she even joined in. Mr. Rhodes. Miss Myra. Wendy looked up from her weaving in surprise. She'd been so focused on her work that she hadn't noticed them approaching. Now that she thought about it, it really had been quite a while since she'd seen them last. Rhodes bent down and gave her a warm hug. How've you been, Wendy? Wendy nodded with a bright smile. I'm doing great. Though her face was a little tired, it was clear she was happy. Even if it was hard work, she was doing something that mattered to her. Myra gently took Wendy's hand and chatted with her. She couldn't help but feel a pang of worry at the dark circles under Wendy's eyes. What was this child working so hard for? She reminded her of Rhodes when he pushed himself too far. Maybe that was why he cared for Wendy so deeply, they were alike in that way. Rhodes turned to Carla with his arms open. Carla, want a hug too? Carla immediately turned her nose up. As if I would ever want a hug from you. Typical tsundere cat behavior. Rhodes just chuckled and summoned Worm instead. Then play with Worm instead. Without hesitation, Worm stuck out his big tongue and gave Carla a full slobbery lick, leaving her fur soaked. Ugh. What in the world? Carla shrieked. Ha ha, sorry. Rhodes said quickly, waving his hands in apology. Carla glared daggers at him as she furiously tried to wipe the drool off her face. What on earth are you feeding this thing? How did it get so big, so fast? Chapter 326, Am I Just Unlikable? Wendy wore a delicate purple wreath on her head, one that Myra had gently placed there herself. The flowers were woven from violets the two picked along the road, a simple handmade gift to go with the other souvenirs. Look, Carla. Miss Myra made this for me. Wendy beamed, twirling slightly with joy. It looks beautiful on you. Carla said softly, her voice laced with affection. But a moment later, she felt something being placed on her own head. It was another wreath, this one crafted by Rhodes. From the slight uneven pressure pressing down on her ears, Carla could already tell. It was definitely not the same as Wendy's. This is something only little kids wear. She huffed, pulling it off. She eyed the lopsided crown of sparse, crooked violets. Is this supposed to be a flower crown, or a grass clump? Wendy quickly slipped off her own wreath. Carla, let's trade. I actually like this one better, she said with a sweet smile. There's no need. Carla placed the mismatched crown back on her head, albeit with a sigh. It's not like I'm planning to wear it in public. Such a little angel. Such a little tsundere. Rhodes chuckled and took out the rest of the souvenirs. After saying goodbye to Magna, Wendy and Carla invited Rhodes and Myra back to their home. Carla brewed the tea, as always. Rhodes chatted with Wendy about the town they'd just returned from, describing the scenery, the mission, and the chaos that followed. Wendy shared updates about her training and the new skills she'd picked up lately, from weaving and leatherwork to carving and traditional Nervit rituals. She even talked about what she hoped to learn next. Myra made a perfect listener, leaning in with interest, asking just the right questions, and praising Wendy with warmth that made her glow with pride. Rhodes didn't understand why Wendy had suddenly dived headfirst into learning all these ancient crafts, but he figured it was just a newfound hobby. After all, Even Riza was obsessed with armor design and collecting clothes. After a while, Wendy turned the conversation back to the guild. I saw a photo of Miss Riza in Sorcerer magazine recently, she said. I was really surprised. Of course, she was putting it mildly. It was quite the situation. Myra said with a wry smile and began recounting Riza's now infamous glorious moment from the latest issue. Both Wendy and Carla listened wide-eyed, mouths slightly open. Rhodes eventually brought up the person Wendy missed most. By the way, Granny Poorly Uzuka doing just fine. Just as expected, Wendy brightened immediately. Really? Absolutely. Rhodes nodded. She's full of energy, and still yells louder than anyone I've ever met. And her broom hits hard. So yeah. She's in great shape. What kind of health check is that? Carla muttered. The last time I visited, I asked if she had anything she wanted me to pass on to Wendy. Rhodes added with a chuckle. She slammed the door in my face. Wendy's shoulders slumped slightly. So she didn't leave a message after all. But Rhodes continued, smiling as he set down his cup. After slamming the door in my face, she opened it again just a few seconds later. Wendy perked up. She told me to remind you to take care of yourself while practicing magic. Not to push too hard. Rhodes sighed. She's got a temper just as strange as Carla's. Wendy's face lit up again. Yeah, that sounds exactly like her. Excuse me? Carla slapped the table with a sharp thwack. Who are you calling a tempered person? Rhodes calmly picked up his tea and took a sip. Who made this tea? It's incredible. You're not deflecting this with compliments. Carla snapped. Myra giggled softly, resting her cheek on one hand. You're adorable when you're flustered, Carla. Carla flushed pink and turned to Myra in protest. Why are you siding with him too? Rhodes leaned in with a mischievous grin, casually draping an arm around Myra's shoulder. Didn't I already tell you? Myra and I are dating. Huh? Wendy froze, eyes wide, and blinked several times at the sight of Myra resting against Rhodes. Then, her entire face turned beet red, steam practically rising from her head. Dating? That expression, it looked just like Riza when she got caught off guard. What? Carla echoed, eyes widening as her tail puffed up. Since when? Myra didn't budge from her spot against Rhodes' shoulder. She was clearly enjoying the double reaction. With a warm smile, she replied. We made it official around the end of April, maybe the beginning of May. So, about 2.5 months now. Carla's eyes widened. So the rumored boyfriend was real after all? Rhodes raised an eyebrow. Wait, even you heard about that gossip? Carla crossed her arms, looking smug. Because Wendy keeps an eye on anything related to you. Though the guild was remote, it wasn't completely isolated. Wendy still occasionally left the village to take on small jobs in nearby towns, and when she did, she'd always bring back old newspapers and magazines, especially anything that mentioned fairy tale. She reads all the news about fairy tale. Carla added. Especially if it has your name in it. That reminds me. Rhodes said, glancing at Wendy. We've got a new member at the guild named Lucy. She's a celestial spirit mage too, and she's been following our guild's news a lot, kind of like you. He smiled. When you have time, come visit the guild. I'll introduce you to. I think you'll get along. Why yeah. Wendy was still blushing deeply, clearly flustered and not entirely registering what was being said. Rhodes wondered if she'd even heard him clearly. Myra gave him a gentle nudge and a knowing smile. Sensing that it was time to get serious, Rhodes let go of Myra and turned to Wendy. Anyway, aside from visiting, we also came to show you something important. Myra nodded, letting the teasing drop. She could tell from Rhodes' tone this meant something special, especially to a dragon's lair. Rhodes explained everything about the mountain dragon to Wendy in advance, including the fact that it didn't know Grandini or Gneil. But even before he finished, the look on Wendy's face made it clear, she still wanted to see it. Rhodes, as always, found a quiet area in the forest far from the guild where they wouldn't be seen. He summoned his monsters first to stand guard around the perimeter. In a place surrounded by trees and thick canopy, the air buzzed with stillness as the earth trembled softly. Then, with a burst of magic and a shifting of stone, the mountain dragon emerged. Massive, regal, and ancient, its body like sculpted earth and moss, its golden eyes filled with silent wisdom. Wendy stood frozen, her hands clenched over her chest, tears welling in her eyes. She had been raised by a dragon. Even if this one wasn't Grandini, the presence alone stirred something deep inside her. A powerful, instinctive feeling of kinship. What struck her most was the dragon's gaze. Its eyes weren't fierce or wild, but warm and kind. Rhodes, watching from the side, blinked in confusion. Wait a second. Why is it being so gentle? He frowned. It didn't act like that when I summoned it. He remembered clearly, when he first met it, The mountain dragon had almost tried to crush him. Is it because I'm not as cute as Wendy? He muttered bitterly. Myra rose onto her toes and gently patted Rhodes on the head in sympathy. But Rhodes only sighed. That didn't help. Wendy took a small step forward and asked softly. Excuse me. Do you know Grandini? She's a sky dragon who raised me. The mountain dragon gazed at her for a long moment, then slowly shook its head. The motion was subtle for a creature of its size, but the gust of wind it created ruffled everyone's hair. Wendy's smile faltered slightly. I see. Still, she bowed deeply, hands pressed together. Thank you for letting me meet you, Mr. Mountain Dragon. The great beast leaned down without warning. Carla immediately moved in front of Wendy, ears back and eyes narrowed. She was small, but fearless. But the dragon only pressed its snout gently to Wendy's cheek, rubbing her with the side of its massive face in an unmistakably affectionate gesture. Wendy reached up to touch it, tears slipping down her cheeks. Rhodes, meanwhile, looked like he'd just eaten 100 sour lemons. Why does my dragon plays with Natsu like a cat and treats Wendy like a daughter? He mumbled in defeat. Whose summon even is this? He turned to Myra with a look of existential crisis. Myra. Am I just completely unlikable? Chapter 327, Dragons, Dinner, and Distractions. I think maybe you just don't fit a dragon's beauty standards. Myra said, giggling as she covered her mouth with one hand and patted Rhodes' back with the other. But it's okay. I still like you. Whether it was Myra's natural boldness or just her playful teasing in the moment, she said it with such ease that Rhodes couldn't even feel embarrassed, only comforted. If Wendy and Carla weren't right there, he would have kissed her on the spot. Wendy gently stroked the mountain dragon's cheek, surprised by the texture. It was rough and firm, more like solid stone than anything soft. Not like Grandini, but still, the feeling of connection warmed her chest. After 7 long years, she had finally touched a dragon again. Even if it wasn't Grandini, it was something. Carla's initial vigilance had started to melt away too. Although she briefly wondered if this dragon might be trying to steal Wendy from her. But before long, the mountain dragon sat down again, locked eyes with Rhodes, gave him a judgmental look full of ancient contempt, and vanished into thin air. Rhodes understood instantly. He probably despised him for being a weakling. That look. It screamed, you summon me with such drama and can't even keep up? Pathetic. Rhodes clenched his fists in frustration. Mr. Rhodes, thank you for coming all this way. Wendy said sweetly, still a bit shy but glowing with happiness. Rhodes waved it off with a soft smile. We promised a long time ago, didn't we? Carla, ever the pragmatist, narrowed her eyes. You sure you're not turning into a dragon slayer or something? You're getting pretty cozy with dragons. I doubt it. Rhodes replied. Even though I've picked up a few mountain dragon spells, I can't exactly chow down on rocks or dirt. And he had tried once. That story ended with a jaw ache and regret. Carla nodded slowly. It's getting late. Myra said, stretching slightly. Shall we head back? I'll make something tasty. Shouldn't we be the ones hosting you? Carla retorted. Come on. Rhodes grinned. We're not strangers anymore. Plus, Myra's cooking is divine. Wendy, ever loyal, mumbled. Carla's food is delicious too. That's true. Rhodes agreed diplomatically. He'd tasted both and could say that with authority, even if he quietly gave Myra the edge. On the way back, Rhodes spotted and caught 2 plump pheasants. Myra took charge of the meal prep, which included unfortunately processing the birds. Carla was prepping vegetables and seasonings. Rhodes, on the other hand, grabbed Wendy and insisted they watch Myra together. Myra tied her hair up neatly and slipped on an apron that Rhodes had packed for her. The one Wendy normally used didn't quite fit Myra's figure. She stepped up to the task with casual confidence. With one hand, she gripped the base of both wings. Her pinky hooked around one of the legs, then her thumb and index finger clasped the neck. In one smooth motion, she completely restrained the pheasant single-handedly. Then Myra calmly picked up the kitchen knife with her left hand and gave it a smooth wipe, the blade gleaming as she expertly drained the blood from the pheasant with a clean, practiced motion. Wendy couldn't help but murmur in awe. You're really skilled at this. Myra turned her head and flashed them a gentle smile. Ah! Wendy yelped and instantly ducked behind Rhodes, peeking out from behind him with wide, nervous eyes. Myra blinked in surprise. Huh? Wendy, are you scared of chicken butchering? It's not just that. Rhodes muttered, feeling a chill himself. Myra. Can you, maybe raise the knife a little higher? Yes, like that. And smile again, but this time a little softer. Myra followed his directions. Like this? The polished kitchen knife gleamed in her hand, the blood slowly trickling down the blade and dripping onto the wooden floor. And the woman holding it, beautiful, elegant, exuding queen-like composure, tilted her head and gave a perfectly gentle smile. It was terrifying. Wendy whimpered from behind Rhodes. I'm sorry, Miss Myra. I promise I'll never disobey again. Wah. Myra's eyes widened and she dropped the knife with a soft clatter. Ah. Wendy. I didn't mean to scare you, I'm so sorry. She glared at Rhodes in mock irritation, as if to say, do something about this, now. Rhodes sprang into action, pulling a treat from his bag, some premium Poro jerky, and waving Worm over. The big, fluffy creature waddled up and began nuzzling Wendy affectionately. As Wendy hugged Worm for comfort, Myra's gaze flicked to Rhodes again, sharper this time. Rhodes raised both hands in mock surrender. I swear on my life, I'll only attend funerals in the future and never cheat. Why are you saying something so weird all of a sudden? Myra huffed, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. She shooed Rhodes and Wendy out of the kitchen and got back to work on the second pheasant. As the water heated, she caught her reflection in the blade and tried a few different expressions. In the end, she pouted at her mirrored self. Was it really that scary? Dinner that night was pheasant stew with wild mushrooms, the main course made from freshly caught pheasant and hand-picked forest mushrooms. When Myra lifted the lid from the clay pot, an irresistible aroma spilled out, flooding the entire house. It was rich, savory, and full of warmth. Worm, who couldn't even reach the table, whimpered miserably, tail wagging and tongue hanging out from the intoxicating smell. The meat was tender and juicy, the mushrooms soft and soaked through with savory broth. Every bite melted on the tongue. The food was so delicious that Rhodes reluctantly shared some with Worm, an act that, in his mind, officially qualified him as the most generous man alive. After dinner, a random thought struck him. Being around Wendy came with an unexpected perk. You could eat any mushroom you wanted without worrying too much about poisoning, because if it wasn't instantly fatal, Wendy could purge it from your system in minutes. A dream come true for mushroom lovers. Of course, if you ate something that killed you before Wendy could help. Well, that was just bad luck. Myra, on the other hand, didn't need to worry at all. With her Satan soul takeover, she could stomach any poison, including the kind that would kill a normal person in seconds. A truly enviable constitution. Maybe to smooth things over from earlier, Myra doted on Wendy throughout the meal, helping her to dishes, serving soup, and making sure she got her fill. By the end of dinner, Miss Myra had naturally become Big Sis Myra. Rhodes, by association, was now Big Brother Rhodes. Though it probably helped that they'd brought a mountain dragon to meet her. After dinner, Carla asked an important question, so, what are the sleeping arrangements? You two aren't sharing a room, are you? Sharing a room? Big Sis Myra and Big Brother Rhodes? Wendy's face turned bright red, steam practically rising from her ears. Rhodes raised a hand in peace. I'm fine with whatever the lady decides. Then you sleep with Worm. Myra said, wrapping Wendy in a playful hug from behind. I want to share a bed with Wendy tonight. Is that okay? Wendy wobbled from the emotional damage, blushing even harder. Why yes. But only if it's really with you, Big Sis Myra. Carla glanced at them, slightly annoyed. She wanted to sleep with Wendy too, but what space did a small cat really take up? Myra looked positively delighted. It's fine, sweetie. I used to share a bed with my little sister all the time. You have a little sister? Wendy asked, wide-eyed. Myra's expression turned warm with nostalgia. Yes. She was just as sweet as you when she was little. But. She trailed off. Rhodes glanced at her quietly. Myra gave him a soft look, silently telling him not to worry. Wendy tilted her head. But what? Nothing important. Myra said quickly, smiling again. Come on, let's wash up. Rhodes was escorted to the room opposite the girls. He'd stayed in this same room before, back when he and Gray were traveling together. Now it was just him and Worm. Women. They only distract from my training. He muttered to himself as he sat cross-legged on the bed and began meditating. After a solid session, he flopped down onto the mattress, tugged the blanket over his head, and mumbled dramatically into the dark. I wish I was distracted. Worm licked his face affectionately. Rhodes pushed him away with a sigh. I wasn't talking about you. Chapter 328, Something happened in the guild. Carla stirred from sleep before dawn. No. The timing felt right, but she couldn't breathe properly. Something soft and warm had her buried. She squirmed upward and squeezed her way through a gap between mountains, only to find herself face to face with Myra's peaceful sleeping expression, and behind her, the equally unfortunate, though adorable Wendy. Carla placed a paw on the mountains out of habit. Instinctive feline behavior. She quickly pulled her paw back. Wendy would probably be devastated again. Carla understood the girl's insecurities, but there wasn't anything she could do to fix it. The best she could offer was to get up and cook a nutritious breakfast. Wendy was still young, there was hope. Carla quietly slipped off the bed. Myra, still half asleep, sensed the movement and hummed softly, pulling her pillow tighter into her arms. Now Wendy was the one being smothered. Carla shook her head and left them be. Honestly, being hugged like that wasn't so bad. Outside, Carla heard a rhythmic voice counting. 57, 58, 59. She peeked around the corner. Rhodes was doing push-ups, with Worm perched squarely on his back. Hulu Worm greeted her with a wobbly wag and slobbery grin. "Morning," Carla replied, arching a brow. Still sticking to that ridiculous routine? She remembered Rhodes and that exhibitionist Gray doing morning workouts like clockwork whenever they stayed over. Morning. The most important thing is persistence. Rhodes grunted out, pausing briefly between reps. Carla noticed Worm's eager expression and quickly retreated before she could be licked again. Breakfast time came. Everyone sat down at the table, but Wendy was noticeably quiet, her eyes downcast. Rhodes glanced at her. "Didn't sleep well, Wendy?" "No. Yes. I slept fine," she stammered. In truth, she'd slept better than ever. It was warm and safe, like being held by her mother. The problem was waking up to Myra using her like a body pillow. Myra gently patted her head. "Sorry about that. I'm used to hugging pillows when I sleep. I didn't mean to smother you." Hiss. Rhodes practically sparkled with envy. To be used as Myra's pillow? Bliss. Without a word, Myra grabbed a fried egg and stuffed it into his mouth. His face made it obvious what he was thinking. She'd hugged him plenty of times before. Why was he jealous now? Rhodes munched with a groan of appreciation. Sure, she had hugged him. But not in her sleep. Now that he thought about it, hadn't she helped him sleep with her magic twice before? Had she ever done anything else while he was out? Did he miss his chance? No, really, it's okay, Big Sis Myra. Wendy blurted out, trying to steer the conversation away from her humiliation. "Do you have any plans for today?" "This is my first time staying at the Kate shelter," Myra said, looking around with curiosity. "I'd love to explore a bit before heading back tomorrow. But I hope I'm not imposing." "Not at all." Wendy beamed with joy. "I'll give you a full tour, Big Sis Myra. Oh, and the clothes here, especially the ones made by Papel, are really pretty. Do you want to try some on?" "Can I?" Myra asked, her eyes lighting up. Of course. Myra was genuinely excited. Last year, Rhodes had given her a set of clothes from this very place as a souvenir. She only got to wear them once before the seasons changed. This year, she'd been thinking about altering them, but if she could find a perfectly fitting set right here, even better. Naturally, Rhodes tagged along. He wasn't allowed in the dressing area, of course, but he stood by ready to give his input. His fashion opinions mattered, at least in Myra's eyes, and Rhodes basked in that small honor. Sadly, the fun didn't last. Just as they were about to begin what Rhodes privately dubbed Project Myra Dress Up, someone called out, "Mr. Rhodes, Miss Myra, Master Rubal wishes to see you." It was Magna, a young man from the Nervic tribe whom Rhodes had met before. "Master Rubal?" Rhodes asked. Magna nodded solemnly. "Yes." He said, "It's urgent. Please come at once." "Understood. We'll head over immediately." Myra gently set down the outfit she had been admiring. She straightened the elegant purple dress she was wearing and adjusted the ornate golden necklace around her neck. Before they left, Rhodes helped align the necklace properly, and Myra returned the gesture by neatening Rhodes' collar. Wendy and Carla, worried about what might have happened, trailed along with them. "Master Rubal, sorry to bother you," Myra said respectfully as they entered the main hall. They had skipped greeting him the day before at Wendy and Carla's suggestion. Now Myra wondered if that had been impolite after all. Rubal was seated cross-legged on a slightly raised cushion, the aged tribal leader emanating a relaxed, if eccentric, air. "Fools," he grunted in greeting. "Huh?" Myra blinked in confusion. Rhodes leaned in and whispered, "It's just something he always says. I think it's a quirk." Myra nodded slowly, unsure but trusting him. "I assume you called us because something urgent has come up?" she asked, gently cutting to the point. Rubal waved a hand. "Not from me. Your guild wants to talk to you." "Fools." Rhodes and Myra stiffened. A direct contact from Fairy Tale, especially through long-range magical communication, usually meant one of two things: something serious had happened in the guild, or a nearby companion was in danger and needed immediate help. Rubal pointed toward a large, curtain-draped tent at the rear of the hall. "Magic communication crystal. Inside. Go." Rhodes and Myra bowed respectfully and made their way behind the curtain. Wendy couldn't help but ask softly, "Master, what happened to Fairy Tale?" Rubal shook his head slowly. "No idea. If you're that worried, go see for yourself." "Fool." Wendy took a hesitant step forward. But then stopped. Even though she cared deeply, she wasn't an official member of Fairy Tale. It would feel wrong to insert herself into something that might be private guild business. The communication crystal inside the Kate shelter was enormous, nearly as tall as Rhodes himself. It was far larger than the compact crystals used back at the Fairy Tale Guild Hall. But Rhodes' new size didn't always mean advancement. In recent years, the Magic Development Bureau had been pushing for miniaturization and portability. Still, that wasn't important right now. What was important was the face that appeared in the crystal. Urza. I'm sorry, Myra. I'm sorry, Rhodes. Urza said the moment the connection stabilized, her expression grave. Rhodes and Myra exchanged a worried glance. What's going on? Rhodes asked. Urza lowered her head, fists clenched at her sides. I was too careless. I told Master Mikhailov I would look after the guild while you were gone, but I failed. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from guilt. This wasn't the usual self-blame Urza sometimes carried over trivial things. This was heavier. Sharper. Don't put all the weight on yourself. Myra said gently. There are so many hotheads in the guild. You can't control every one of them by yourself. But Urza shook her head and cut her off. It's not that kind of mistake. It started the night you left. Natsu? He had Happy steal an S-class request from the second floor. What? Rhodes' eyes widened. Even for Natsu. That was insane. That kind of act could get you expelled from the guild. His immediate instinct was concern. Is Natsu okay? Is he in danger? No, he's safe. Urza said. Gray and I chased him down, and we ended up completing the mission together. But when we returned... She paused. Her voice broke slightly. The guild had been destroyed. What? Myra gasped and covered her mouth in shock. Rhodes felt his head buzz as if someone had clapped their hands right beside his ears. Destroyed? This wasn't just some internal mess. Judging by Urza's expression, it wasn't an accident or a brawl gone too far. This was an attack. Rhodes' voice was low but urgent. Who did this? Chapter 329, No one was hurt, but everything broke. Phantom Lord? Myra frowned. Is anyone hurt? No injuries. Urza replied. They attacked the guild at night while it was empty. That was the best news they could have hoped for. Still, Rhodes couldn't help the cold anxiety creeping into his chest as he imagined what state the guild had been left in. Was it because of something I did? He remembered running into Phantom Lord members twice, once with Myra and again with Urza and Natsu. But they had only clashed with branch members, not the core. The exact reason is unclear. Urza said. Our relationship with Phantom Lord has always been tense. Maybe the animosity just built up over time? I don't think this is solely your fault, so don't dwell on it. Rhodes wasn't the only one who'd had run-ins with Phantom Lord. Most of the time, Fairy Tale came out on top, but there were a few cases where they hadn't. Those members rarely admitted it though, making it hard to say who was winning the rivalry overall. We'll return immediately. Myra said. What did the master say? He said that since no one was hurt, it's not worth getting worked up over a bunch of cowards who only dare to strike when no one's around. That's not good enough. Myra said firmly. If we don't respond, they'll only grow bolder. I know. Urza said, frustration bubbling beneath her composed expression. But it's what the master decided. Still, you two should return quickly. There's a lot of work to do. The guild may need to be completely rebuilt. We'll leave tonight and arrive by morning. Rhodes said, glancing at the time. Urza was about to insist there was no need to rush. The master had mainly called them back to help manage the reconstruction. But she knew Myra and Rhodes wouldn't rest easy until they returned. Please talk to the master again. Rhodes added. Today it's buildings. Tomorrow it could be lives. We need to understand their intentions as soon as possible and then. He paused. He wasn't sure what came next. The smart approach would be to involve the Magic Council. The satisfying one would be to fight back. Knowing Fairy Tale, they'd probably choose the latter. He'd have to think carefully about how to navigate the Council's response. If things escalated into open war, one of the two guilds would be disbanded. The guild prohibition on armed conflict wasn't just for show. And as a wizard saint, Master Mikhailov had to weigh the stability of the entire magic world. But attacking empty buildings didn't cross the Council's bottom line. Not yet. I understand. Urza nodded. Even if Master hadn't said anything, I'd keep everyone on high alert. That's all I can do for now. We'll see you back at the guild. See you soon. The magic communication crystal flickered and dimmed, returning to its dormant state. It now looked like nothing more than an oversized, polished orb. Their reflections shimmered faintly at its surface. Rhodes and Myra looked at one another. Then, without speaking, they reached out and took each other's hand. In their eyes, there was no fear. Only quiet determination. Let's go. They said together. Whether angry, hurt, or shaken, it didn't matter. They were going home. Rhodes gently placed a hand on Wendy's head and smiled. Sorry, Wendy. Carla. Something's happened back at the guild. We have to go immediately. Do you need our help? Wendy asked quickly, concern bright in her voice. Myra smiled warmly. It's okay. We've got this. But we'll come back to visit again soon, I promise. This kind of trouble couldn't be allowed to implicate Kate's shelter. After saying their goodbyes, Rhodes and Myra quickly packed up and departed in haste, riding a scuttle crab toward Magnolia. Myra didn't even have time to change out of her current outfit. They didn't plan to take the usual route via train or ship around the coastline. This time, they would travel through the night and cut straight across terrain, no matter how difficult, to reach the guild as quickly as possible. On flat plains, they used crabs. On rocky paths, they switched to raptors. When crossing mountains, they relied on krugs and merc wolves. Neither spoke much along the way. But the sweat on their palms, as they held each other tightly, said more than words ever could. The best news was that no one had been injured. But the fact that the guild had been damaged to the point of needing a complete rebuild. They pressed on at high speed, crossing varied terrain and switching summon mounts multiple times. As night gradually fell, they chewed on dry bread for a bit of energy. Just enough to keep going. Neither of them cared for taste or comfort. Rhodes took out a blanket and spread it across the crab's broad back. There's a flat stretch ahead, he said. Try to rest for a bit. We'll be there by morning. What about you? I'm not tired. I need to keep watch. Myra hesitated for a moment, then leaned into his chest and closed her eyes. She pulled his arms around her like a blanket, wrapping herself in his warmth. In truth, Myra wasn't sleepy either. She simply planned to switch with him during the second half of the night so he could rest too. Rhodes' mind was a swirl of thoughts. He tried to recall everything he knew about Phantom Lord, comparing strengths, numbers, tactics. Dozens of branches, and a main guild with no fixed location. Rumor had it their headquarters could move, a six-legged wandering guild designed to uproot and strike wherever they pleased. Numbers weren't the biggest concern. But their technical power was unmatched in some areas. Both Makarov and Joseph were wizard saints. But Makarov was ranked higher and had even defeated Joseph in the past. Phantom's aces included the Element 4 and Gagiel Red Fox, the Iron Dragon's Lair. All of them on par with S-class mages. But Fairy Tail had Urza, Myra, Lixus and Mistogan. Natsu may not be officially S-class, but against another Dragon's Lair, he wouldn't go down easily. Then again, Mistogan had recently left the guild on one of his solo journeys, and his whereabouts were always vague. Lixus had his own personality issues. Rhodes didn't know what Lixus would do once he found out. Maybe Lopsis would show up, throw out a sarcastic remark or two, and help them fight, turning this mess into an opportunity to mend strained bonds. Or maybe he'd charge into Phantom Lord alone in a fit of rage and challenge their entire guild. Rhodes wanted to believe in Mikarov's grandson, that deep down, Lixus wasn't a bad person. But he also had to prepare for the worst. If Lixus chose not to involve himself at all. Or worse, if he turned on them. Then they'd have to be ready to deal with an S-class threat. When estimating battle strength, Rhodes naturally used Myra as a benchmark, but if things escalated into all-out war, there was no need to rely solely on Myra to match their enemies. His thoughts spiraled, as if full-scale war was already inevitable. They'd need reinforcements. Once back, maybe the best move was to deploy summons and even the odds with numbers. The night deepened. A crescent moon floated high overhead. Though it was summer, the wind between the crab's shell-like ridges turned brisk. Rhodes pulled out a coat and draped it gently over Myra, then sprayed it lightly with insect repellent. Normally, he would have done this at sunset, but his mind had been scattered since the call. Then again, under normal circumstances, they wouldn't be racing across the wilderness at midnight. Later that night, Myra stirred, rubbed her eyes, and sat up. My turn, she said softly. Rhodes blinked up at her. Are you sure you slept at all? I did, she replied, voiced serious. Even if I was only pretending, it still counts. Now switch. All right. Rhodes summoned another crab to relieve the current one and then climbed onto the blanket where Myra had been resting. As they resumed moving, he leaned into her warmth, pulling the coat tighter around his shoulders. Try to get some real sleep, Myra murmured, lighting a soft pink glow at her fingertips, the beginnings of a sleep magic spell. I can handle watch. No thanks. Rhodes replied quickly, pushing her hand away before she could wave it in front of his eyes. If you do that, I'll feel like I've died and you're performing a ritual. She smiled at the comparison but didn't insist. Rhodes lay still for a while, eyes closed, body jostling gently with the river crab's movement. But his mind was far from quiet. Then Myra's hand tapped him lightly on the forehead. Don't link with the crab's vision, she said firmly. Let me handle the patrol. Busted. He sighed and reluctantly disconnected his sensory magic from the summoned creature. Too sharp, as always. Even so, he made a conscious effort to relax. No matter what tomorrow brought, he'd need to face it fully rested and clear-headed. The next morning, dawn painted the sky in soft hues of gold. The scuttle crab skittered swiftly through Magnolia's gates, heading straight for the Fairy Tale Guildhall. Even though Rhodes had mentally prepared himself, the sight that greeted them still sent a wave of fury crashing through him. The once proud three-story building, so full of laughter, fights, and guild spirit, was now in ruins. More than a dozen massive iron rods had pierced through its walls and roof. The damage was grotesque and deliberate. Fairy Tale looked like it had been impaled by a giant's spear. Rhodes' hand tightened into a fist, until Myra quietly reached out and squeezed it. Her grip was gentle, but firm. And it trembled slightly. She wasn't as calm as she appeared either. They didn't speak. Rage simmered just beneath their skin as they entered the remnants of the guild. They made their way down to the basement, expecting to find someone, anyone. But it was empty. Master? Rhodes called. Ursa? Myra added quickly. Elfman? Kana? Natsu? Gray? No answer. Chapter 330, Soul of the Earth, Juvia of the Water. No one. Myra stood still, gently extending her senses. There was no trace of magical energy nearby. If anyone from the guild were still here, she would have sensed them immediately. No one in Fairy Tale would ever try to hide like this. Given everyone's temperament. If something like this happened, they must have already left to fight. Rhodes guessed that Risa had managed to persuade the master. But still, they had promised to return by morning. Why would they have departed so suddenly? His gaze drifted toward the basement's makeshift tavern. On the tables, wine glasses and dishes were left half full, abandoned. This wasn't planned. Something urgent had pulled them away. The two quickly returned to street level and headed to the nearby shops to ask around. Miss Murjane? Mr. Rhodes? One shopkeeper blinked in surprise. You haven't heard? Master McRiv stormed off with nearly the entire guild this morning. Rhodes stepped forward. Was someone hurt? Who? Where are they now? The man scratched his head. I heard it was Miss Levy and her two teammates. They were taken to the hospital. Everyone says it was Phantom Lord. It's disgusting, what they did. At that, Myra and Rhodes both exhaled in relief. In Fairy Tale, injury protocol was pretty clear. Minor injuries got patched up on the spot, serious ones went to the hospital, and only truly dire cases warranted calling in Polyuzica. Being hospitalized meant it was bad, but not life-threatening. Standard serious injuries. In guild terms. But even as their worry subsided, anger surged in its place. To attack them in the city? Phantom Lord had crossed a line. Just imagining the condition Levy and her friends must be in. No wonder the master lost control. Let's go after them right now. Myra snapped. Wait. Rhodes grabbed her wrist, pointing toward the sky. Above the hospital district, an unnatural formation of rain clouds was beginning to spiral, centered ominously in a single stormy patch. That's over the hospital, isn't it? Lucy walked alone through a narrow alleyway, a shortcut she often used to get back to the hospital. She had gone to check the guild, only to find it empty. Now she was hurrying back to Levy's side. She completely forgot what Risa had said the night before. Never go out alone, not with tensions this high. But what else could she do? Everyone else was either hospitalized or had gone to fight. Despite how little time she had spent with them, the quiet emptiness of Fairy Tale's normally bustling hall had unsettled her deeply. Then, to make it worse, it started to rain. The sudden drizzle clung to her clothes and hair, making the solitude even more oppressive. Lucy, a naturally emotional person, found the atmosphere weighing heavily on her. That was when they appeared. A man and a woman, strangers dressed strangely, stepped into the alley ahead. Their voices carried bizarrely, talking about targets and objectives. Lucy's instincts flared. She stopped cold. Who are you? She demanded. The man stepped forward, lanky and tall. He had slicked back green hair, a curled mustache, wore a crimson suit, and sported a pair of tiny monocles perched on his nose. His voice had a strange, theatrical rhythm to it. I haven't even introduced myself. How terribly rude. I'm Saul of the Earth. No, he gestured flamboyantly with a spin. Just call me Monsieur Saul. The woman held a laced parasol in one hand, dressed in a heavy, deep blue gown. A black veil draped over her head, and pinned to her chest was a charm shaped like a Turuturu Bazu, a traditional sunshine doll. Her voice was low and tinged with melancholy. Juvia is the Rain Woman. One of Phantom Lord's, Element 4. Yes, the Rain Woman. Drip. Drop. Her tone lingered on the words with odd emphasis. What kind of woman? Are you? There was something bitter, almost vengeful, in the way Juvia said the title Rain Woman. As if it carried with it years of buried resentment. Lucy ignored the strange theatrics. One word had caught her attention and left her trembling. Phantom. You're from Phantom Lord. You destroyed our guild. And hurt Levy. Non, the man, Saul, flourished his hands, shaking his head dramatically with each no as if that would clear up the misunderstanding. It was Monsieur Gagiel who did those things. He destroyed your guild. He attacked Miss Levy. It was. How do you say? An executive decision made by our noble master. Despite the honorifics and his over-polite manner, nothing about him felt refined. Saul wore a bright red suit and kept a stiff, awkward posture, his voice lilting like some cartoonish nobleman. Yet his body trembled constantly, and his speech pattern was so bizarre that Lucy could find nothing elegant in him at all, only something unhinged. Why would you do this? Lucy reached for her celestial spirit keys, hand trembling with fury. Saul twisted his body in an unnatural, fluid motion, almost as if his spine were made of wet noodles. He bowed with exaggerated politeness. We've come on behalf of the great Phantom Lord to escort you, Miss Lucy Hartfilia. Lucy froze. You, how do you know my last name? Her eyes widened in alarm, but before she could act, the parasol-wielding woman raised her hand. A surge of water erupted from thin air and coalesced into a dense, shimmering sphere nearly 2 meters wide. It engulfed Lucy in an instant. Waterlock. Juvia whispered. Ugh. Lucy struggled inside the sphere, her hands clawing through the swirling water. Her keychain slipped from her belt and clattered to the ground, ringing against the cobbled stone street. The current churned violently around her, pushing into her mouth and nose. Her limbs began to slow, her strength draining with every second. Juvia's waterlock is inescapable. Resistance is futile. Juvia murmured. Her voice was distant, cold. Lucy's eyes began to blur. But then, a green blur dropped from the sky like a meteor. A powerful crash shattered the water sphere. Lucy felt an arm wrap tightly around her waist. In the next instant, she was pulled free from the trap and landed safely on the ground, supported against the chest of someone strong and familiar. A deep, muffled voice spoke through a helmet shaped like a crab's shell. What do you think you're doing to our adorable new recruit? Lucy coughed violently, spitting up 2 mouthfuls of water before she could breathe again. Her knees buckled, but the man held her steady. The green armor flickered and vanished, revealing the face beneath. Only then did Lucy finally recognize who it was. She said in surprise. Mr. Rhodes. Rhodes tapped the ground lightly with his foot, catching Lucy's fallen keychain and flipping it into his hand. He handed it to her. A summoner should always keep hold of her tools. And he pointed upward. There's a bigger surprise. Lucy looked up, and saw the demon she once feared. But now, seeing her descend from above, all Lucy felt was relief and safety. Miss Myra. Juvia and Saul immediately sensed the overwhelming surge of magic. They glanced up just in time to see 2 demonic claws slam into their faces. Myra didn't pause. She soared down like a shooting star, grabbed both by the face, and drove their heads directly into the street. Boom. A single thunderous crash echoed as the stone beneath cracked in a spiderweb of destruction, leaving 2 deep craters that spread to the nearby storefronts. But Myra's face showed no satisfaction. Something was off. Saul slipped underground like a worm, disappearing into the stone. Juvia's body liquefied into a stream of water, flowing away before reforming a safe distance back, completely unscathed. Saul resurfaced next to her, his monocle shattered on the ground beside Juvia's crushed umbrella. Myra narrowed her eyes and licked her lips. Her voice dropped into a low, dangerous register, laced with casual arrogance. So you're not just fodder after all? No. Saul tried to maintain his awkward grin. We're members of the Element 4, after all. Then his tone turned theatrical. Ah, so it really is the infamous demon Mara Jane and the fairy strategist himself. Our intel said you 2 were off on a honeymoon. Wait, what? Lucy's jaw dropped. So what Happy said about Ms. Myra and Mr. Rhodes secretly getting married was true? Rhodes sighed heavily. You really are something else. She was nearly drowned moments ago, and now she was gossiping about marriage? And this wasn't the first time Happy had filled her head with this nonsense. But everyone in the guild said the 2 of you took a mission just to go on a honeymoon together. Lucy insisted, cheeks flushed. We'll talk about that later. For now. Rhodes clapped his hands. I summon Brambleback. Blue Sentinel. He figured Lucy must have heard the usual exaggerated gossip after he and Myra left for that mission. Phantom Lord must have caught wind of it, too. But now wasn't the time to entertain her distractions. How could this girl get sidetracked with gossip in the middle of a fight? Chapter 331, Kill You. Red buff, blue buff. Rhodes cast his usual buffs, empowering both himself and Myra before the battle began. Saul, however, remained composed. The so-called fairy strategist, formerly known as a beast tamer, a summoning mage, capable of maintaining multiple summons simultaneously, wins through sheer numbers. Close combat skills, sufficient for minor threats. He twirled theatrically. But that won't be enough against us, the element 4. Sand waltz, rock concerto. A swirling sandstorm erupted in a narrow alley, reducing visibility to nearly zero. Dozens of stone projectiles hurtled forward like cannonballs. But in the middle of a rainstorm, the sandstorm's greatest accomplishment was coating everyone in a thick layer of mud. Rhodes' summoned sentinel marched forward unbothered, the stones bouncing harmlessly off its stone body. It raised a massive fist and slammed it toward Saul, only for the earth mage to burrow into the ground and vanish. Meanwhile, Rhodes scooped Lucy up under his arms and tossed her onto the back of the brambleback to keep her out of harm's way. "Ah!" Lucy cried out in surprise. "Hold on tight," Rhodes said flatly. "And don't get off." Myra caught the motion from the corner of her eye and gave Rhodes a pointed look. "He's never lifted me like that." Still clutching the wooden ridges of the brambleback's shell, Lucy shouted, "I want to help too." "Then do it," Rhodes growled. "No one's stopping you. You've got keys, don't you? Use them." Rhodes redirected the blue sentinel to engage Juvia. Juvia didn't evade. Wherever the golem's strikes landed, her body transformed into water and reformed elsewhere. "It's no use. Juvia's body is made entirely of water." She sliced the air with both arms. Aqua stream, twin blades. Myra swept the attacks aside with one arm and surged forward. "You absorbed Juvia's attack?" Juvia exclaimed, startled. Before she could react further, Myra's fist buried itself in Juvia's abdomen. "I told you," Myra growled. "Your watery body isn't going to save you from me." Red light flashed from her hand. Juvia's body liquefied again, but this time she winced. Pain rippled through her core. "How about this one?" Myra conjured a swirling ball of black magic. Dark spark. She slammed the orb into Juvia's chest. It detonated on impact, launching the rain mage out of the alley like a cannonball. "Ah!" Juvia screamed as she crashed onto the wet street. Clutching her chest, she stared in shock as the demon Rajane walked slowly toward her. The falling rain suddenly felt heavier. "So this is the demon Rajane. Nicely done, Miss Juvia," Saul said, popping his head up from underground. The brambleback swiped a clawed limb at him, but only managed to dig a hole in the ground. Saul reappeared from behind the summoned creature. His monocle was shattered, and Juvia's broken umbrella lay beside it. He wagged a finger. "Luring the demon away is helpful. But you..." He smirked at Rhodes. "You're nothing without her." What kind of strategist hides behind his girlfriend's fists? Rhodes frowned. He'd attempted several counterattacks already, but Saul's slippery earth magic made it impossible to land a clean hit. Burrowing through terrain, dodging mid-strike. The guy was a real pest. Rhodes didn't risk using his Krug transformation underground. Saul was an earth mage, an S-Class 1. Recklessly challenging him in his own domain was asking for trouble. Better to probe for weaknesses first. "I'm helping too," Lucy shouted from atop the brambleback. "I'm the one who opens the gates to the celestial spirit world. Answer my call. Open, gate of the archer. Sagittarius." "Yo, I'm here." A man in a ridiculous horse costume appeared, holding a longbow and a quiver full of arrows. "Why are you in a costume?" Lucy groaned. "We haven't even signed a contract yet, and you show up like this? Ugh, whatever. You're an archer, right?" "Absolutely. I'm Sagittarius, your archer, miss." "Yo. Good. The green-haired guy's the enemy. Hit him whenever he pops up." "Roger that, yo. Leave it to me." Lucy sighed. "Why does every new spirit I summon make their debut in the middle of a crisis?" Lucy muttered to herself in frustration, then gritted her teeth and pulled out the whip hanging from her waist. "You summoners are really fragile," Saul taunted, popping up like a jack-in-the-box. His attacks weren't serious, they were psychological, appearing, throwing out a mocking jab, and disappearing like a game of whack-a-mole. From the back of the summoned brambleback, Sagittarius loosed a flurry of arrows. They pierced stone tiles and struck with admirable force, but failed to land a direct hit on the nimble earth mage. Even though Sagittarius was one of the zodiac spirits, the gap between him and the zodiac spirit used by the cloaked woman was clear. That woman's summons had been terrifyingly strong in comparison. Saul, still vanishing and reappearing, cackled. "Did you know Mara Jane once had a younger sister? She died because of her. And now you're her lover? Oh, it's only a matter of time before you die too." No, 3 knows to correct myself. "You're definitely going to die because of her. She's a cursed demon." No, No, Miss Myra. Lucy gasped, hand flying to her mouth in shock. But then she glared. That's way out of line. Where did this creep even dig up this outdated, twisted nonsense? Congratulations. Rhodes said darkly, his tone dropping. You managed to piss me off. Scales started to form along Rhodes' face. His hands and legs morphed into fierce dragon claws, and wings erupted from his back with a burst of wind. Lucy's eyes widened. This magic. It's like that day. No, Saul stammered, visibly panicked. This kind of transformation wasn't in the report. He immediately dove into the ground like a mole. Rhodes roared in fury. I swear, I'm going to tear you apart even if it kills me. He slammed both hands against the ground. Mountain dragon art, burrowing tremor. Boom. The cobblestones beneath them cracked. A massive mound of earth erupted like a mini volcano, its swelling base shaking the entire street. The mound swelled higher and higher, quickly reaching more than 20 meters tall, its core trembling like it held something barely contained. Shops nearby shook. Walls cracked. Rooftop tiles tumbled down. The whole alley quaked. Lucy, clinging to a vine on the monster's back, screamed. This is just like last time. What is this? Thankfully, Rhodes hadn't fully lost control. The mountain stabilized, forming into what now looked more like a giant earthen cannon aimed at the sky. The soft outer wall rippled, and something began to rise up inside. Then launched like a boulder from a catapult. Rhodes' dragon wings flared open. Wind burst across the street as he soared up after the projectile in a blink. High above, the earth projectile began to unravel, revealing Saul trapped inside. No. Mountain dragon's fist. Rhodes' clawed fist crashed down squarely into Saul's face with explosive force, sending a shockwave through the sky. Saul's face was a mess of crushed features, completely distorted from the brutal impact. He tumbled through the air, screaming incoherently as pain overwhelmed him. You're a dragon's lair. He gasped, barely coherent. Rhodes soared after him, delivering a bone-rattling kick to his gut. As Saul reeled, Rhodes twisted midair and slammed both of his rocky wings outward. Mountain dragon's wing strike. Then, with a smooth aerial spin, his tail swung upward in a sharp arc. Mountain dragon's tail. Saul shot skyward again like a ragdoll. Rhodes didn't give him time to recover. He took a deep breath, his lungs drawing intense magic, and then unleashed it all in a devastating blast. Mountain dragons. Roar. A swirling storm of jagged stone and compressed wind exploded from his mouth, a miniature landslide launched at hurricane speed. Saul's body flailed helplessly, caught in the dragon's breath like a dead leaf swept into a whirlwind. He didn't even have the strength to scream anymore. As the magic died down, Rhodes allowed his body to return to normal. His transformation faded, and the heaviness of gravity immediately reclaimed him. He began falling through the air. But before the rush of wind or the pain of landing could hit him, something solid and strong caught his back mid-fall. Followed by the warmth of soft arms pulling him close. Rhodes blinked and found his face buried in the familiar comfort of Myra's embrace. Chapter 332, Lucy Hartfilia. I thought I was going to fall to my death. Rhodes clung to Myra tightly, maybe a little tighter than necessary. The aftershock of battle still buzzed in his chest, but the fear of losing control was stronger. Then why do something so reckless? Myra asked gently, not scolding him, but cradling him as they descended slowly toward the street below. Because sometimes I get angry. Rhodes touched the ground with a quiet sigh and reluctantly released her. The warmth of her arms, soft and comforting, lingered in his memory like the tail end of a spell. Myra shifted back into her usual form, her demon transformation fading away. Her purple dress returned with a shimmer of magic, though the rain had soaked both of them thoroughly. She hadn't heard what Saul had said before the fight, but judging by the look on Rhodes' face, it must have been something awful. She'd ask Lucy later. The rain had stopped, leaving the street drenched and steaming. Myra gestured toward the massive chimney Rhodes had raised, more of a mountain-shaped crater. What about that? Give me a few minutes to restore my magic. Rhodes said, rubbing his temple. I'll break it down and clean up the debris. And I guess I'll pay for the damages. His face twitched slightly. Hopefully no one had anything valuable stored nearby. Privately, he was already tallying up the compensation and planning to send the bill to Phantom Lord when this was over. His eyes drifted to Saul's unconscious body, still lying like a crumpled leaf in the crater's shadow. Was that guy really supposed to be S-class? When estimating battle strength, Rhodes had always used his own S-class benchmark. That's why he went all out earlier. He couldn't afford to be careless after traveling through the night. But now that he was standing here, looking down at the thoroughly wrecked Saul, it felt like maybe that had been overkill? He sighed. Myra could probably have beaten two of them alone. Just then, Lucy came jogging around the base of the collapsed chimney, soaked but unhurt. "Miss Myra." "Mr. Rhodes. Are you okay?" "We're fine." Myra answered gently. "What about you, Lucy? Are you hurt?" "I'm okay." Lucy winced and rubbed her backside. "Just fell off that big tree monster when it disappeared." Rhodes raised his hand sheepishly. "That was me. Sorry. My magic ran out." "It's fine. It's fine. I heard from Riza that you two came back overnight, and—" Lucy's voice trailed off. Her expression grew heavy with guilt. "I should be the one apologizing. All of this happened because of me." Myra let go of Rhodes and stepped forward, brushing wet hair out of Lucy's eyes. "It's Phantom Lord's fault. Don't blame yourself. But the guild was destroyed. Levy and the others were hurt. Because of me." Lucy's voice wavered. Rainwater, or perhaps tears, fell from the tips of her bangs. "My real name is Lucy Heartfilia." Rhodes blinked. Heartfilia. That name was more than familiar. It was legendary. The Heartfilia family was one of Fiore's wealthiest and most powerful noble houses, comparable in influence to the royal family itself. A runaway heiress. It made sense now. She'd avoided giving her full name when joining. Rhodes quietly imagined a scenario: rich girl flees home, joins guild, and her controlling father sends a dark guild to forcibly bring her back. And Lucy might be the richest woman in the kingdom. All she needed now was a sincere, broke idiot who'd love her for who she really was. Rhodes? Completely unmoved. He already had the most beautiful, not quite as rich girl in Fiore. What more could he ask for? Myra looked equally surprised. Heartfilia? As in the Heartfilia concern? Lucy nodded slowly. Yes. From the things Juvia and Sol had said, she was certain now. Her father had sent Phantom Lord to retrieve her. But what she couldn't understand was, why destroy the guild? Why attack Levy and the others? Maybe Phantom Lord had taken the job just to have an excuse to act out their aggression legitimately. Or maybe this was a ploy, lure the tiger from its den. Either way, Lucy was convinced now. This was her fault. Levy's team had been attacked. The guild had been destroyed. And she had brought it all down on them. It's all my fault. If I hadn't joined the guild. Lucy gripped the fabric of her shirt, her fingers trembling. Her heart ached. Fairy Tale had felt more like home than her real one ever had. But now it was in ruins. Because of her. That's not true, Lucy. Myra's voice was calm but resolute. She stepped forward and wrapped Lucy in a warm embrace. When Phantom Lord decided to target our guild, this stopped being your problem alone. Myra gently took Lucy's right hand and brushed her thumb over the pink Fairy Tale emblem etched into the back. Or maybe, Myra added, from the moment you chose to wear this mark, this stopped being just your problem. Lucy's tears welled up again. Miss Myra. Myra met her eyes, her own expression filled with quiet strength. One person's tears are everyone's tears. That's what Master Mikrov always says. So lean on us, Lucy. Don't forget, we're Fairy Tale. Miss Myra. Lucy sobbed, throwing her arms around her, unable to hold back any longer. What? Myra gently stroked her back, letting her cry it out. Nearby, Rhodes silently finished restoring his magic with blue buff. He stepped toward the enormous crater he had created earlier and placed his dragon-clawed hands against its side. The towering earthen structure slowly began to sink, crumbling and melting into the ground as if it had never been there. Rhodes carefully smoothed the terrain, doing his best to return it to its original state. Then, with a resigned sigh, he scribbled out a few notes and tucked them into the doorways of the damaged shops, offering apologies and promising compensation. Only after all that did he return to Myra and Lucy, finding the latter now a little more composed. You should take a shower and change clothes, Rhodes suggested, glancing at her soaked hair and sleeves. Lucy still looked pale and shaken, and her magic reserves were clearly drained. If she stayed wet like this, she might get sick. And at this point, she was their guild key. Phantom Lord could try to strike again at any time. He and Myra couldn't afford to leave her unattended. They couldn't let another tiger lore tactic catch them off guard again. But eventually, she needed to be with the others. Rhodes decided he and Myra would wait until they had rested and regained enough strength, then they'd bring Lucy to reunite with the guild. For now, they needed a safe place to regroup. Lucy's apartment was modest but cozy. It was Rhodes' first time there. The living room was neat, a pink comforter folded neatly on the sofa. It looked warm, inviting. There were some bottles and jars on the dressing table. If you look closely, some of them are the same brand as Myra's. In addition, she also has a special desk, on which are placed several recent magazines and half-written papers. There are many books on the bookshelf, and quite a few of them are well-known novels. In addition, Rhodes glimpsed a pink dumbbell in the corner of the room, and there were several scratches on the wallpaper nearby, as if scratched by a cat. Lucy actually works out? Rhodes had a strange understanding of the newcomer. It seems that she is also a very hard-working person. No one answered him, because Myra and Lucy were taking a shower in the bathroom, and there were only him and the two captives in the room. Saul was unrecognizable. He had countless broken bones. Judging from the blood in his mouth, he probably had some internal injuries. Juvia seemed to have been beaten badly by Myra. Not only was her face bruised and swollen, but her clothes were also torn. Myra said that she had been using dark magic to deal with her body that could turn into water, so she was a bit heavy-handed. It would take a while for someone with such injuries to wake up, but Rhodes still tied them up with ropes. It was a pity that there was no magic seal stone. Rhodes' body was also wet, so he could only sit on a chair and wait. If it was not Sue, he would probably just lie on the bed. Myra's voice came from the bathroom. "Rhodes, I forgot to bring clothes in, can you help me bring them in?" Then Lucy screamed, "Hey no." Myra said again, "Then let's go out naked to change?" Lucy rejected it. "That's even worse." "Hey, I don't think it's a problem, Lucy is so picky." "No." Lucy shouted. "You are his girlfriend, of course you think it's okay." "Then Lucy means you want to be Rhodes' girlfriend too?" "No such thing." Rhodes laughed outside. It seems that Myra has counseled Lucy. As for the last sentence, just listen to it for fun. If Lucy really agrees, she might die on the street tomorrow. If Rhodes is lucky, he can keep his life, but if he is unlucky, he will be soaked in formalin and accompany Myra forever. Chapter 333, One man makes an army. Rhodes used re-equip magic spell to pull Myra's luggage from storage, sorting through it until he found 2 suitable outfits. From a smaller, more private pouch, he even retrieved an outfit Myra had previously forbidden him from touching. Lucy's clothes were taken straight from her own closet, just as she instructed. Since he couldn't walk into the bathroom himself, Rhodes relied on Worm to deliver the clothing. Sometimes, Worm really was more useful than a person. A short while later, the 2 girls emerged from the bathroom with towels wrapped around their hair, looking refreshed. Myra gave Rhodes a nudge when she caught him staring at her. "Your turn. The bathwater's still warm. Lucy used it first, but you can go next." "That was your bathwater too?" Lucy shouted, flustered. Rhodes grinned. "Then I won't be polite." "Be polite. And it's already been drained." Myra covered her mouth to stifle a laugh. Clearly, she was having fun teasing Lucy, even at her own expense. Rhodes showered quickly and returned to find Lucy finishing up drying her hair, now helping Myra with hers. Though Myra had taken over his usual task, Rhodes didn't mind. Lucy seemed troubled, and her expression confirmed it. "Honestly, I don't think he cares about me at all. Otherwise, why would it take him over a year to check in on me?" Lucy sat with Myra, her voice quiet and bitter. She explained how she had left home a year ago, and only now had her father shown interest in bringing her back. Ever since her mother's death, the bond between her and Jude had grown colder. Jude Hartfilia had been emotionally distant, burying himself in business. Lucy had hoped it was just grief masking his care. But as the years passed, that hope began to fade. "It's been 7 years since my mother died. I was 10 back then. I got through it, and I decided I'd live strong and do my best. But he never even looked at me. How could a father ignore his daughter for so long?" She clenched her clothes tightly, her voice raw with emotion. "And now he sends Phantom Lord after me like I'm a runaway asset. It's cruel. I can't forgive him for this. If things are as you say," Rhodes said gently, "there's got to be a reason he's trying to bring you back now. Either he's seriously ill, or he's trying to marry you off. How could any parent not love their child?" Myra said softly. "Even someone like Mikhail still deeply cares about Romeo. Once all of this is over," she continued, "you should try talking to him again. Maybe he still sees you as a little girl, but you're not. You're a wizard of fairy tale now. You're strong and independent." It was a subtle jab at Mikhail's parenting, but it rang true. "Yeah." Lucy nodded firmly. "I'll make it right. I'll apologize to everyone in the guild later. But for now, I want to help." The unpleasant topic came to an end for the time being. Lucy gently stroked Myra's long, snowy white hair, freshly blown dry, a touch of envy in her eyes. "Miss Myra, your hair is so soft and beautiful." Myra smiled. "And yours is lovely too. Golden hair like yours is rare and radiant." Lucy touched her locks with a small smile. "It's the same color as my mom's. I've always had cancer to help me take care of it." They began exchanging little secrets about caring for their hair and skin, just quiet, girlish talk. The tension from earlier gradually dissolved into warmth. Myra tied up her bangs once again and stretched with a graceful yawn. "All right. Shower's done. Fatigue cleared. Time to move out. Fatigue didn't vanish that easily, of course. But lingering around would only make them worry more about their friends. So the three of them, Rhodes, Myra, and Lucy, dragged along the unconscious Juvia and badly injured Saul. Rhodes figured that if any of their own guildmates had been taken captive, they could use these two for a trade. It was a slim hope, but a hope nonetheless. Even with Wendy's help, Juvia and Saul wouldn't be in fighting shape anytime soon. The two crabs carried the group of five swiftly toward the town. Neither Rhodes nor Myra could have predicted just how badly things had gone back at the front. Fairy Tale had suffered a crushing blow. And it all started with the fall of their guild master. Quick! Fall back to the guild. Mikriv's collapse struck a devastating blow to morale. The guild, once holding its own and even pressing forward, began to falter. Wounds piled up. The tide of battle turned. Gagiel and the mage who had ambushed Mikriv watched hungrily from the sidelines. The remaining Element 4 and Phantom Lord's master, Jose Porla, hadn't even stepped onto the field yet. If the fighting continued, things could spiral beyond repair. Ursa, acting in Mikriv's stead, gave the only order that made sense: retreat. Phantom Lord's forces, both elite and foot soldiers from branches, pursued them without mercy. The mages of Fairy Tale were forced to abandon the town. At the rear of the retreating group, Kana threw trap cards one after another, slowing the enemy's advance. Natsu, Gray, and Loke held the backline, unleashing magic to fend off or delay their pursuers whenever they could. Elzik and Biscuit turned back from time to time, returning fire with their rifles. Elfman, the largest among them, ran at the front with the injured Master Mikriv in his arms. Urza guarded him from behind, preventing any further harm from reaching their unconscious guild master. Other members in the center of the group carried those more seriously wounded. Don't even think about running away, Fairy Tale. Stop, you cowards. Where's your S-class now? Hiding? I heard there's some kind of strategist with you, must be too clever to show up. Despite the insults and their rising fury, not a single member turned back. Everyone understood, this was a tactical retreat, to regroup and strike back harder. Even hot-headed fighters like Natsu and Gray followed Urza's command without question, knowing it was for the sake of the guild. Dozens of Fairy Tale wizards retreated, while nearly 200 Phantom Lord members gave chase. But the longer they ran, the more the pursuers' formation began to thin due to the interference of Fairy Tale's magic traps and counterattacks. The taunts never stopped, but the wounded guild members gritted their teeth and pushed on. At the front of the group, Elfman suddenly slowed his pace. Elf. Urza began, but then she saw them, two crabs racing toward them. Her breath caught. The weight on her shoulders felt a little lighter. For the first time since the retreat began, she allowed her face to soften, tears nearly slipping from the corner of her eye. Only she knew how close she had been to breaking. It's them. Elfman shouted, voice rising with disbelief and hope. Sis. Rhodes. The others heard and saw the incoming figures, Rhodes and Myra on the back of summoned crabs, with Lucy behind them, and expressions of exhaustion cracked into smiles of joy. Reinforcements. Hope. Rhodes, Myra, and Lucy stared in disbelief. They retreated? The sound of Phantom Lord's cruel laughter and jeering echoed faintly across the battlefield. That alone ignited something inside them. Why? Why were 200 enemies chasing only a few dozen of our people? Numbers? Summon, Blue Sentinel, Brombleback, Gromp, Raptors, Merkwolf, Krug, Void Drubs. More than 30 summons surged forward, wild beasts conjured from magic and forged from will, descending upon the Phantom Lord ranks like a living tide. 3 Void Drubs lingered behind, hatching waves of purple Void Mites that crawled around the Fairy Tale formation to ambush Phantom Lord from the sides. Lucy stood frozen in awe. This was magic on a scale she had never imagined. How much magical power did someone need to wield this much? Rhodes looked ahead, at his wounded comrades, at the tattered remains of their pride, at Master Mikriv unconscious in Elfman's arms. His chest rose and fell, his fingers clenched tightly around the pendant at his neck. Summon. No. Myra grabbed his hand. She knew exactly what he meant to do. If he summoned the dragon now without rest, without preparation, it would break him. Rhodes met her gaze. Her worry, her strength, her warmth. He gritted his teeth and lowered his arm. Then. Rift Herald. Chapter 334, Exhaustion. Blue buff, red buff. Not knowing exactly what was wrong with the master, Rhodes cast the buffs on him first just in case. The remaining 3 buffs he assigned to the most seriously wounded, giving them some much-needed relief. Lucy, are you alright? Yes. Mr. Rhodes and Ms. Myra saved me. I'm sorry. The two of them weren't even on the same page, but somehow their question and answer still matched. Myra turned to Urza, eyes full of concern. What happened to the master? Urza's mouth opened, but the words wouldn't come. Let's talk about that later. Rhodes said, quickly shifting gears. Elfman, take the master to Poorly Uzuka. Right now. Rhodes called Scuttle Crabs over and helped Elfman get the unconscious Makarov onto the creature's back. Man. Elfman grunted with determination and urged the crab to move. He might look rough, but Rhodes knew Elfman was surprisingly gentle when it came to taking care of people. The master would be in good hands. The next two most seriously injured, get up here. Rhodes pushed Sol and Juvia down from their current mount. Kana, take care of them. Got it. Two crabs rushed off with the gravely injured. The rest of the group began a more organized retreat. The lightly injured led the way, followed closely by those with moderate wounds. A few dependable fighters like Macau, Wakaba, Elzik, and Biska guarded the flanks. Natsu, Gray, and Loke held the rear. Even Loke, despite his usual fear of Rhodes and overwhelming awkwardness around Lucy, had his game face on. This was no time for hesitation. They carried Sol and Juvia's unconscious bodies. If worse came to worst, they could serve as bargaining chips or shields, anything to keep their comrades safe. Behind them, 12 raptors swooped down from the sky. Their razor feathers rained down in a flurry, dropping several pursuers before they could react. Grumps leapt into range and spat venom. Those quick enough dodged or stripped off their outer layers. Those who didn't screamed in agony. Merkwolves tore into the enemy ranks, each impact like a battering ram. Grugs erupted from beneath, toppling Phantom Lord mages or dragging them underground. The Phantom Lord forces weren't completely untrained. After the initial surprise, they started regrouping and fighting back. Wild summons began falling. But then, a massive purple beast barreled into their ranks like a bolt of living thunder. More than 20 people were flung into the air like rag dolls. Their barely formed counterattack shattered in seconds. Panic rippled through their formation. Those near the Rift Herald felt the shockwave of its charge even if they weren't hit, the sheer force threatening to lift them off their feet. Magic blasts, blades, and fists landed on the Herald, but the thuds were like pebbles against a cliff. If the creature felt pain, it gave no sign. It flicked its tail in irritation. More mages went flying. And it wasn't alone. Behind it lumbered 2 blue sentinels and 2 brombolebacks. Although the summoned beasts were smaller than the Rift Herald, seeing 4 massive creatures charging forward side by side was overwhelmingly oppressive. And that wasn't all, Void Knights kept pouring in like an endless tide. Who was it that called the tamer useless? Who mocked the fairy strategist? He's here now, so go ahead, try stopping him. Maybe it's time to remember that start just comes from tactics. And tactics often involve commanding an army. Urza switched into her sky wheel armor and launched a barrage of hundreds of enchanted swords, raining them down upon the fleeing Phantom Lord members. Myra, now fully transformed into her Satan soul form, hurled one black magic sphere after another, each one detonating with devastating power. The last shred of courage Phantom's forces had evaporated. Monsters. They're monsters. Why are there more bugs no matter how many we kill? Our attacks aren't doing anything. What began as a full frontal pursuit quickly turned into a panicked rout. The elite members of Phantom Lord didn't show up. They were busy executing other plans. And the ones on the field now couldn't handle this onslaught. Nearly 200 Phantom members had swarmed the battlefield when they arrived. By the end, only a few dozen managed to flee. The rest were scattered across the wilderness, groaning in defeat. Most of the summoned beasts vanished soon after the battle ended. Before disappearing, the creatures bestowed final buffs upon Rhodes, Myra, and Ursa. 2 Krugs remained, crouching down to carry the trio back toward their companions. Ursa and Myra headed directly to the Ruin Guild Hall. Their presence was needed to restore morale and support the shaken members. Rhodes, however, veered east into the forest, toward the treehouse where Poorly Uzuka lived. Master might need her help with treatment. When he arrived at the door, he saw Elfman being firmly shooed away. Just as the door was about to shut, Rhodes dashed forward. "Granny, how's Master Makarov?" Poorly Uzuka didn't respond directly. She simply threw the broom she'd been brandishing into a corner and turned back into the house. That meant, permission granted. Rhodes quickly stepped inside, leaving Elfman scratching his head outside, mumbling. Why does she always treat me differently? Inside, the ever-smiling Guildmaster Makarov lay quietly on the bed, eyes closed. His presence was still, his energy faint. Today was the first time Rhodes had ever seen the old man this weak. Makarov, who could effortlessly cast powerful defensive spells, who could transform into a giant and carry the whole guild on his back, now lay motionless, pale, and still. It's wind-based magic. Poorly Uzuka muttered, checking his condition. The effect is exhaustion. It drains a mage's magic power rapidly. A nasty piece of work. For a wizard. She continued, her voice growing colder. Magic is life. The stronger the mage, the more devastating the effects of having that energy ripped away. She gritted her teeth and looked like she wanted to smack Makarov again. That idiot. Even at his age, he's still pulling the same reckless stunts he did in his youth. All he ever does is cause trouble for others. Rhodes tuned out her grumbling. He was more focused on what really mattered. This condition. He'd heard of it before. Is it magic deficiency? He asked. So if we restore his magic power, he'll be alright? It's not that simple. Poorly Uzuka huffed. But it will help. At least it can ease the pain and stabilize him. She glanced at Rhodes, her gaze sharp. I assume you're the one who gave him that recovery boost? Yes. Rhodes perked up. So the blue buff helped. That's great, maybe I can maintain it longer. He raised his hand. Take over Blue Sentinel. Blue buff. The space inside the treehouse was cramped, so instead of summoning outright, he'd take over the Sentinel's magic into himself to avoid wrecking the room. Even so, he bumped his head on the hanging lamp overhead. Poorly Uzuka didn't miss a beat, she whacked him twice with her broom. Ow! Sorry. Rhodes cancelled the stone form enchantment and rubbed the back of his head with a sheepish grin. With his hard armor gone, Poorly Uzuka finally lowered the broom, though she didn't stop muttering under her breath. Seriously. You're just as reckless. He always hoped you'd take over someday, and look at you, panicking at every little thing. How can someone like that be trusted to run that troublesome guild? Rhodes blinked. Wait. The master said that? Poorly Uzuka sighed and turned away, but her voice softened slightly. He's been thinking about who to pass the torch to. But don't get ahead of yourself. You've got a long way to go. Rhodes fell silent. He'd only been with Fairy Tail for a year. He was strong, yes. But not on par with S-class legends like Lixus or Ursa. Not yet. And yet. Fairy Tail was just like this. Chaotic. Messy. Wild. And somehow, full of heart. Even the decision of choosing the next guild master felt like a warm family squabble. He took a slow, deep breath. I understand. If the old man was hoping for a steady successor, then he'd become one. The master's judgment isn't wrong. If he believes in me, I'll earn it. I won't let him down. A small smile crept onto Rhodes' face. But still. He should hang on as guild master for another 100 years. He's got way more experience writing apology letters than I do. He added with a quiet chuckle. I don't really want to be guild master. Chapter 335, Bad News and Good News. Makarov's complexion looked significantly better than when he was first carried back. As soon as the effects of the previous buff faded, Rhodes immediately refreshed it. He also cast another buff on himself, and on Elfman, who was still waiting outside the door. Alright. He's basically out of danger now. Poorly Uzuka muttered after another brief check of Makarov's condition. But her expression quickly shifted to one of visible irritation. You, get out. Eh? Granny Poorly Uzuka, I. Rhodes hesitated. He was still worried about the master's condition. What do you mean I? This is no place for you to be loitering. She snapped, waving her hand and dramatically pinching her nose. You humans stink. Out. And just like that, she shoved him outside and slammed the door. A moment later, the tiny window of the treehouse creaked open. Poorly Uzuka stuck her head out and pointed at the crabs standing nearby. Take those two hulking creatures away too. They're nicer. They're not humans. Rhodes protested. They can help the master if someone tries to attack. Oh, so now you think I can't even protect one patient? She shouted. Got it, got it. I'll leave everything in your hands. Rhodes sighed, canceling the summons. The old woman had chosen to live out here in the woods alone. She must have had some kind of defense plan in place. After thinking it over, Rhodes summoned Worm and nudged the fluffy creature toward the treehouse window. Alright, I'm leaving you behind to keep watch. You know what to do. Worm gave a low chirp and sat down obediently. If something went wrong, it would cancel its own summon to alert Rhodes immediately. Wait. Poorly Uzuka didn't drive Worm away this time. Instead, she opened the door again, marched over to Rhodes, and jammed a small bottle into his mouth. GGH. Cough, cough. Bitter liquid flooded his throat before he could react. It was the most aggressive bottle feeding he'd ever received. That's a potion to relieve fatigue. She said flatly. Now go, and stop bothering me. Before he could respond, she tossed her cloth bag into his arms and turned around, vanishing back into the treehouse. Worm padded in after her just before the door slammed shut. Elfman blinked, looking a little less embarrassed about being kicked out earlier. She's still as fierce as ever. Rhodes shook his head and opened the cloth bag. Inside were various small jars and rolled bandages, classic external wound treatment supplies. She's worried about the guild too. Rhodes said quietly. That's why she rushed us out. She doesn't even want me wasting magic power unless it's necessary.